Welcome to Benno and Hamflett In Your House, a podcast reviewing WWE's iconic new generation B shows in order from the bus to back to the boom. I'm Michael Hamflett.
And I'm Benno. I'm Michael. We are here. Third In Your House. It's the triple header. In Your House 3. Triple header. And it's coming live from the Saginaw, is it? Saginaw Civic Center in Michigan. I'm Michael. What comes to mind when I say those words and say that place?
Well, unfortunately, not a great deal, Benno, because the World Wrestling Federation might have been the recognised leader in sports entertainment, but it didn't go to Saginaw, Michigan very often because this crowd ended up being the smallest pay-per-view attendance in WWF history at that point. There was only 5,146 people in this building, and I just sort of thought the least we can do now that we're reviewing this show is try and pump up those numbers a little bit, you know? So you could come along, I could come along, and we cannot do a triple header without a triple feather. So we've got with us Matty Edwards to turn that attendance into a record-breaking number that he's going to generate for us today.
How are we, guys? Very
welcome.
Pleased to be here. Yeah, hello, Ben. It's been a while.
You again, mate.
I know.
You're always around my house. What's going on? You know too much of it.
Well, seeing that I am in your house, guys, you know, is there a spare couch, a spare bed, maybe even be a bit cheeky, Benno? You know, wouldn't ask for the bed off you, mate, would I?
Mate, you know, you'd never be that cheeky. I've given Matty the keys to my house before when I've gone on holiday, and I've had text about it. You were looking for loo roll. Sorry to start with this. You're looking for loo roll in my house.
I had to go to the shop next door and buy something like.
You're gonna have a bath in my house that one time that you stayed over, mate. So this is all normal for me to have you on. For those who don't know, obviously Matty is one of my co-hosts from GRAPPL Spotlight over there. I think you love Michael more than you love me, Matty, but you know it's always good to have you on, mate, and be chatting with you.
Yeah, that is very much true, Ben. I'm not going to reverse psychology me there, mate. Yeah,
I tried to get him to say something nice. It wasn't coming, was it?
Oh, mate, you know I love you too, though, mate. But no, Michael, it is always a pleasure to speak to your good self, mate, and especially of the Fed here, especially in the golden era to you, mate. And so I'm glad to be coming on talking a year that many people don't really talk about, mate. So glad going to be diving head first into this one, mate.
Makes sense, doesn't it? There's, it's a triple header. We've got 3 titles on the line, or 3 sets of titles, I suppose you could technically say. There's 3 commentators on the In Your House. We need 3 heads here. The triple feather, as you coined it, Michael.
This is it, and we're going to, Matty, what we'll do is we'll get Todd Pettingill and Stephanie Wyan to just give you a tour of the house, and you can find your own room at the back. You know what? It occurred to me when we were getting started, like, Benno, where are my manners? Yeah, this is Matthew Edwards. He does muck/shite, and he does must-see matches. I've done a couple of podcasts with him. You want to get on with him soon? He's kind of, he's across all wrestling podcasts. So I think, like, we should be grateful to have him as a house guest today, you know? Like, the only problem is he's going to bring so many people with him. So, like, we might not have the spare room and the spare rooms afterwards, after he's been.
I feel like we created the monster over on GRAPPL, didn't we, Matty? Now you're on more podcasts than me these days. Although, as we have said, and I've said it on a couple of GRAPPL ones, you definitely Jedi mind tricked your way onto this one, because both me and Michael thought this was our own idea to have you on the 3rd episode. Do you want to tell us how that came about, mate? Was that happen in the copper box? Was it you?
It must have been.
Us both.
I mean, I can't remember much. I remember me and Michael just having a great old chinwag like about the Fed, but it must have come up there, Michael. I can't remember exactly what we were saying. I remember not seeing the show at all that we were in attendance for, but it must have come up then. Must have. And I was trying to get you to come on for our 2001 Fed Odyssey as well, weren't I?
I think the British wrestling podcast industry, as we knew it, was being like booked and rebooked in that corner of the copper box, isn't it? You know, like nobody that does a podcast will tell you anything about the show that night. But every other podcast was planned for like the next 12 months or something. It felt like it was a convention almost, and we'll have to do it again next year to like schedule in the next run of shows.
I felt like me and Brian Alvarez done our own podcast that night. I don't remember how many times I bumped into him.
I expected that in 2026. Instead of Brian and Vinny, Brian and Matty, you'll end up in there. You and Dave Meltzer will be doing the Observer radios on like those Sunday ones that Garrett usually does. You'll find your way in, mate. But like I say, this is weird because we do spend so much time together. I'm always having to treat you like you're a stranger here. Obviously for the new audience here, we've got a few different people that Michael's brought over from his little operation known as WhatCulture. And might as well throw it. I know Matty, but like what? Say you know. what is your like history within your house? Like, where you watching it at the time that kind of these shows go on? We're always going on about me being 11, Michael being a little bit younger than that. We'll throw that in there. But I feel like for you, maybe were you watching at the time? Was it tapes later? VHS tapes, I'm sure, physical tapes.
Of course,
as long time GRAPPL listeners will know, was that that your gateway into this period of WWF?
Well, why I'm so like glad to be on this is that like this was the first In Your House I ever seen, and I owned on VHS on physical video, and I'm sure we'll get the. I have been watching the show, guys. I'm sure we'll get the graphic up later on of the lovely VHS. But this is just an event that like honestly like I watched so many times as soon as I got it. And then it was like you're done with the WrestleManias. I worked my way back. And when I had In Your House one, I was like, what's this? There was two before it, but I was like, I've never seen this before in my life. And just worked my way back. But yet these weren't on over here, were they, at the time as well? So it would have been just the VHS stuff like so. But yeah, this is an event I hold very, very dear to my heart, this one.
It's funny how this... Like, I was going to say, no, like the whole, like I would say for a Coliseum video at the time when they were getting harder to get the hands on, because it just wasn't like like the Woolworths range was getting smaller than it had ever been. The video shops, certainly around my way, stopped renting out new ones. So it kind of ended around like kind of end of the Hogan era, I would say. And I remember them promoting this show at the back end of SummerSlam Plus, which I reached out for on Twitter, and other than a few clips nobody could find. And the very idea of all three belts in the main event made this something of like a holy grail tape. I would go years, I think, without seeing this, and not just seeing the show, literally seeing the physical copy of the video, because it wasn't even a guarantee. I think that the videos were making it to my local Woolworths at that point, because apparently there wasn't the demand, or if there was, it was me competing with two other wrestling fans in the town to get the tape first or something like that. It just wasn't.
Me and Matty. Yeah, Liverpool's HMV.
We were definitely there side by side, Benno. We 100% were, weren't we?
Fighting for the one copy of like some random WCW tape or something like that.
But I was going to say, like, that you say that, Michael, about this specific main event, and I'll probably repeat myself so many times about this. Like, maybe that's what drew me in, like back then as well. But I say that it'd probably draw me in tomorrow, Michael, if it happened on telly now, because I think that concept of this 3 titles in one, I think that's such a good concept. You've only revisited one more time. It's amazing, because people say about like they don't like the theme pay-per-views or the theme like the Hell in the Cells, where it's you could literally manufacture this and it'd be sound for me. You know what I mean? You could have this fall at a certain thing and it'd just be accepted because you're not having to get the violence of like a Hell in the Cell or etc. But I'm very shocked they haven't gone to this a lot more times over the years.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? We spoke about Gorilla Monsoon, didn't we? Changing the SummerSlam ladder match, because he basically came on television as the fan-friendly president and said that Sid and Sean was shit and let's have Sean and Razor because it'll be better.
yeah.
Somehow they'd made good booking like a kayfabe choice. It was this, like Vince McMahon would never acknowledge that his product was bad, and yet through fan-friendly president Gorilla Monsoon, it was like, do you know what I might do? I might try, but I don't want people to think I wasn't trying before, so we'll say that Jack Tunney was bad and Gorilla Monsoon is just coming up. Like, he would then go on to do something like the wild card match at the Survivor Series. There are a lot of people our age that have a lot of favorite sort of stipulations from this time. And obviously in real life, it's because of the WCW presenting itself as a danger for the first time in a long time, but just WWF having no choice but to experiment a little bit more. I felt that this stipulation was like coloring outside the lines. It had never crossed my mind that you could even attempt a match like this as a 10-year-old. And how does this mean the world ends on Sunday? Because there cannot possibly be a WWF where 2 wrestlers have got all the belts on a Monday. It was that big to me that they could even come up with it, because it was the stuff that you dreamt of as a kid. You would have put your action figures in matches like this, but something like this is never going to happen in real life. And then they do it.
Well, can I just throw one back at you as well regarding Gino as like an on-screen authority figure? Do you think he was? No, seriously, it's like I think he's a forgotten one. People name like your GMs, like your Bischoffs, your Regals and such. But I think he's an underrated one because he had that authority, he had that tenure in the company. You knew him, do you know what I mean? And he could still stand toe to toe with the sheer size. etc. Like, i.e. the Vader stuff, you know what I mean? Where they come across. I thought he's a very good, like, on-screen, authority figure.
It's like with Jack Tunney is like the definitive one where it's like, we were saying about AEW, you know, when they first started, nobody wanted to see Tony Khan on TV. Fortunately, we eventually got Tony Khan on TV. But I remember like pitching at the time on podcasts, like what you need is like either championship committee or a Jack Tunney type who's just like the most boring milk toast white bread man on planet Earth who like just gives you occasional rulings, doesn't really have an emotion, positive or negative, doesn't have a leaning each way, apart from the odd time you need him in story, and that's your authority figure on TV. So I think we idealise that, but I think you are right. Like Gorilla Monsoon was like, he was like your kindly uncle, wasn't he? Or like your kindly granddad or something like that, where it was kind of, you grew up watching him or listening to him, more likely, through the 80s and early 90s. So he kind of had that trust factor, didn't he? He had that factor, like you said there, Michael, where he was operating on behalf of the fans, and he was kind of, until they needed to use him for the Vader angle, mostly out of the way, and he could talk too, and obviously in commentary at the time, he was kind of perfect for a very different role if you were going to add a little bit of personality to your GM type person or your president.
It's funny, isn't it? Because he was obviously so ingrained within WWE that he had your trust as a fan, because he was the babyface announcer on all these tapes that you watched or any TV. But the reality being as brutal as it was, that they just didn't have the money to keep a lot of the extra figures. So Jack Tunney was like an easy, like the Tunney and the McMahon like link went back years, and it was just like, no, we haven't got the cash anymore, off you go. Gorilla Monsoon was an easy choice because he was already there. Monsoon was never getting fired, so all of a sudden you might as well have him do this fake role because it saves you bringing in somebody else to do it. I think we talked about this on the In Your House 2 review, which would have been Tunney's last one as a last pay-per-view as a kayfabe authority figure in WWF. I remember as a kid thinking, maybe they should give the job to Vince McMahon, because he too was like a baby face. I wasn't thinking of Vince McMahon as an owner figure. It was Power Slam later this year, and it was Diesel as the tweener that really sort of opened my eyes and made me realize who Vince was in all of this, other than just the commentator. And I remember thinking, I'd have gone with Vince, but Gorilla's a safe pair of hands. You know, it was like they were just the steady eddies at the desk. You know, whoever was coming in as color, and it's funny as well to think that, you know, what this role would ultimately morph into as you had GMs and, you know, and things like that. Until now, I would argue with Nick Aldis and Adam Pearce, you've not had a physically strong, authoritative babyface just making decisions. It's always been the Austin Vince template. It's always been sooner or later they're going to turn. For some reason, the GM doesn't like the top star, even though the top star makes them the money, and nobody ever thinks to ask why. That, like, the Vince Austin thing broke the mold, and only now I think Aldis and Pearce are the closest we've had to a Monsoon. It's taken 30 years to get back to that point.
And Christopher Daniels as well. Don't forget.
I see he got physical though. I know we're dating this podcast, but he did get physical. But yeah,
probably the AW World Champion if anyone's listening to this in 2026, mate. So, you know.
But you're right, Michael. It's like, and that's the weird part of it. Is like Aldis and Pearce are ex-wrestlers, and I know they've teased Pearce. Remember, he's meant to fight Roman at that one Rumble for a couple of weeks before they changed it. But the years they had like your non-wrestlers like Bischoff in main events. John Laurinaitis in main events where they haven't even had these who were actual wrestlers. It's gone the other way, so it's very strange. But I'm all for it. I agree. It makes it a lot more. It's just better across the board.
Well, we're making history today, both from a storyline point of view and from, like you say, the first Benno and Hamflett in your house with a house guest in Matty. And as we've said, we are here to talk In Your House 3, the triple header. September 24th, 1985 is when it is, as people will have heard of us talk on Housekeeping. If you haven't heard that yet, go back to the archives and give that a listen, as we ran through the goings on at SummerSlam 1995. But as Michael said, we find ourselves here in front of 5,146 people with 160,000 buys on pay-per-view, way down from the previous two In Your Houses where me and Michael have talked about. And at that Saginaw Civic Centre, I've got to say quickly, Michigan, what you think of, lads? Matty, for you, Cars, Eminem, Kevin Nash, I kind of think of like a factory city. Yeah, that's it. I just think it's a trip. That's it, the big blue logo.
The Motor City, yeah, it is just cars.
Motor City machine guns.
Yeah, it's just a city of cars, no people. That's what Michigan is. I always loved that. I loved that Kevin Nash and Eminem were from the same place. It made Kevin Nash even cooler if that was even possible. But yeah, it is down. It's got to be said, Michael. On the previous two, like I say, the novelty of In Your House 1 and the cut price pay per view did well. Kind of carried over to In Your House 2. Obviously, SummerSlam '95 as notable as definitely one of the poorer buys as far as pay per views go. Way down on SummerSlam 1994, and that trend kind of continues here, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's something that you've noticed like creeping into the conversation when we were watching the build up to In Your House 2, and then you get it with Todd on the Sunday Night Slam, which is the preview show for this In Your House. I found it interesting that the opening highlight video for In Your House 3 features clips from In Your House 1 and 2. And yeah, they're promoting the card and they're talking about the stipulation of the main event and everything else that's going on in the company. But Todd always wants to bring up how it's cheap and how this is really good value. And I think the reason they show those clips from In Your House 1 and 2 as the video package of 3 is like, look at all the stuff that happens for just $14.99. They are desperate for your money. Like, they're so desperate for your sales. And the only reason they've done In Your House is because they've like needed this extra revenue stream, and already the panic is setting in that it's maybe not going to generate the money they want. And they're trying, I will say, like, it feels like they're attempting to build the brand of In Your House at this point. Something to our shame, Benno, that we've not documented that we're starting. Matty, you get to be part of a bit of history here. We've never documented up to this point how the In Your House logo gets into the house. Yeah. When you see the animation, it picks a different way. It goes through the front door in number 1, goes through the side hatch in number 2, and in this one, it has to climb a ladder to get into the top window. So now there's animation lore, like the In Your House brand is becoming like embedded within WWE. And like that extends to that stupid graphic. It extends to them telling you, like, it's only 15 quid. Please look at, you've had Bret, you've had like, well, you have had Shawn and Jeff in one of the greatest matches of all time. You've had Jeff singing. You've had your money's worth so far. Please stick with this, because we've seen the SummerSlam buy rate and we're shitting ourselves.
Somebody in WWHQ, like we were talking about in Housekeeping, that their whole job was to sit there for a month putting that graphic together with the In Your House bouncing logos. Now you can do it in AI in about 30 seconds, as I learned with some of the stuff that we have on here. Hard graph that though, but I love that. Obviously, we'll get into like the pay-per-view itself, but like that Sunday Night Slam that you managed to pull together, Michael, it's got Todd in yet another production room in Stamford. Like, it just feels like every room, every office there is just tapes and background stuff, and it's like, where should we record this show? Proper studio? Nah, we'll just do it while like Bob's in the background, like doing the master tape for like WrestleMania or something like that. Like, it's that's the level we're at, but it adds something to it. I love that. Todd's just constantly bouncing around like these weird little basements and studio rooms and such. I don't know if you got a chance to see this, Matt. I know you're a big fan of Pettingill.
Oh yeah, no, but this was on the VHS, because obviously this is ingrained in me. Like Michael said on the last one of his last shows, it's like when you get these little nuggets of like these superstars interviews on there, like where like the two dudes with attitudes are going up again, and Cornette's doing the work, isn't he, for the heel team? Just them words are ingrained in my head. Like, the bigger they are, the harder they fall. But then he goes, well, the littler you are, the further you fly, to Shawn Michaels. This is all just watching this VHS so many times. Even when Yokozuna's spitting in the air when Cornette's talking, these images are just burnt in my brain off this lovely thing that we're seeing on the screen right now. It's just, honestly, it's unbelievable. And that's where Mania was from, WWF Mania, though. Pettingill's just roaming around in this. Like, he lived there, isn't it? You just see me got like a little bed behind there, and I love that fact that he just woke up. If you had like a 48-hour shift, get your head down in the back there, so then come back out. Just, what the dream, the absolute dream.
Did you understand, Matty, when you mentioned that? Yeah, and well, that pre-show, as Matty points out, the stuff that just like sticks in your brain. Considering how you are selling the first time, and as you point out, they only did it one more. It was the two-man power trip, and the Brothers of Destruction was the only other time they'd bother with this idea, and how big it was as a young fan, like world title, IC title, tag belts. The four of them were just in, well, and five with Cornette were just in love with the fellas that are yellow, with the chaps with the straps. Yeah, that was all to say.
Two fellas that are yellow.
Two brothers, different mothers.
Yeah. Have you got anything else, lads? No, chaps with the straps? Right, okay, well, we'll do that again then.
And I'll say this again once we break the pay-per-view down as well. You couldn't get a better person to sell you this than Jim Cornette, though. He's unbelievable at putting this idea and concept across. Honestly, he is so good during this whole build-up and on the night.
I love that. Like I think at one point, like Sean cuts the promo, doesn't he? About, we're gonna walk out the tag team champions with all the gold. He goes through this entire run, and then Diesel gets on the mic and he's like, he calls Cornette Captain redundant because Cornette has repeated that two fellas are yellowed line over, and then just repeats what Sean said. I think he literally does. Twin brothers, different mothers as well. Like, but before the body donners as well. That's clearly Vince is in the ring hearing that, going, "That's a gimmick. We'll do that next year." Sorted. Absolutely perfect. But it's like it's getting like it's hammering that home, isn't it? Like I don't think I own this video, so this was my first time seeing it. But you're right, Cornette's worth his weight in gold for stuff like that. He's gonna. It's like you hear him even that, for all the horrendous things he says, and he says a lot of horrendous things. He's still got that wrestling brain in him where he is always going to cover that, he's dot the I's, cross the T's, make sure he, gets the go home line in, make sure adds a little bit of strife, adds a little bit of genuine doubt that maybe Sean is going to be pinned by Yokozuna. Maybe there's a doubt here that Sean and Diesel, might not be able to work together. Like, I remember believing it as a kid and hearing Jim Cornette on the TVs at the time rather than this tape, make those points and but genuinely, coming out of this pay-per-view, Sean and Diesel are going to use their belts. Like, he's so effective in that role. He's perfect, and I made up it's on this tape.
I think Cornette was, obviously, he was a couple of years in at this point, and he was such a gift to the presentation of, like, the Yokozuna character when Yoko was the champion. That bought him, like, surprisingly, when you think about the type of chemistry, that bought him proper goodwill with Vince, didn't it? Because Vince McMahon wasn't necessarily going to want someone like a Jim Cornette doing his like heavy lifting with the promos. But when Yokozuna was the champion and he couldn't rely on Mr. Fuji, like what a lifeline he was for that title run. And you know what Vince is like for the people that like made him money or got him out of a jam in times like this, especially when he's not got his pick of the entire industry. I think that bought Cornette like years and years of goodwill. And like we're going to talk about certain other things that I guess go on in the next review because it's most prevalent on television. But this, of course, is I think the day of or the weekend of. This was the weekend that Vince McMahon paraded Bill Watts around this roster and said, "Bill Watts is your new boss. I'm giving him creative control." And there's no coincidence as why Jim Ross is back at the announce desk, obviously. And if you're thinking like Jim Ross is getting a bit more stroke, is getting a bit more position on television, Jim Cornette is basically now the Bobby Heenan of the 90s babyface in terms of a heel manager. Definitely. Like, there aren't many times when Vince McMahon, the promoter, would stretch so far out of his comfort zone of what he likes to try and find that formula, to try and find what is missing. And it's all money driven, but when in sort of the history of like Vince the promoter from 2022 going back to when he first bought the company, would you see him like do things he obviously wasn't really in favor of, but he was just willing to sort of take a punt? Like it's a sort of, not least when Nitro's launching as well. So his back's against the wall in a way that it hasn't been, and he's got no money and nothing's drawing. It's such a unique period of time that the company and him just don't find themselves in very often.
Well, you say all these like good things about Cornette there and how he's got the... But I hope you've got his age written down, Michael, for when we review the show later, because I have, mate, and I honestly, I was nearly in tears. Seriously, we'll go in. When him and Michael Hayes are sat side by side, Doc Hendricks, doing the promo, I'm going to hit you with it. I swear.
I've got a one for you later, and it might involve somebody that you've just mentioned because one knocked me clean out of my chair. So it's just like...
Incredible. Well, we'll get to that later. The other thing I was going to mention as well on this little pre-show as well as it being the Cornette show, it's also the Dean Douglas show. Like, how hard did he try to get that character over? Tom Pettingill hates the nails on chalkboard sound. He must throw that in like 3 or 4 times. This feels like In Your House too, where it feels like the pre-show is just the Jeff Jarrett show. This time out, it's the Dean Douglas show, and he's one of yours, isn't he? Oh, Troy. Matty. I'm scared to know actually what age he is during this time. But like,
I haven't even looked at that one.
Mega push on this pre-show though. Bloody hell, he's all over it.
You know what? And it's one of them. Like, obviously, it's all right in hindsight saying, "Well, it didn't work." But you know, when you go back and you do watch it, like he dives in, and people say he didn't like fully embrace the character. For me, it's come across well. Like that one at SummerSlam where, you know, he's reviewing the ladder match and Razor comes in. Like, what a dig that is. From the day I seen it, that's a half a shoot dig, that, Michael. That's like all the stories years later about, like, you know, the Click and Shane Douglas. But that was a great little setup. And then obviously we'll talk about the match later on, where it's like we can say was Razor like sandbagging. You believe all the stories over the years. But
I've got a lot I want to get off my chest in that match when we get to that. A lot.
But as a character, for fitting that time, I thought he'd done well. And looking back at that, we give you the D for dumb and the A, you know, and it spells the D. Looking back, I got a kick out of it. I enjoyed it. I love little characters like that.
The sort of the theme of shows from around this era, other than like surprise, amazing matches or the stuff that maybe doesn't get enough credit, is like, I think bury the new generation, and people have for decades, right? Bury the new generation, but bury it properly. If you're going to criticize it, understand what you're criticizing. Don't just paintbrush everything as shit. And I think, to your point about Dean Douglas, we were talking about this. I think it might have been with Henry Godwin on In Your House too, and certainly Jeff Jarrett. The problem, well, one of the problems that they had at the time with the way they were creating characters was that it doesn't, like, with the old adage of gimmicks sell T-shirts, characters sell tickets. Yes, Jeff Jarrett is a phony singer, but what he really is a bad guy who's perpetuating a lie. And it's that person. It's not that he's a singer or he's a mime. It's that he's a liar. He's a bad person. Like, that was spot on. In contrast to that, Henry Godwin is just a pig farmer. He's not a pig farmer. He's not a pig farmer. Like Isaac Yankem is just a dentist. He's not like, do you know what? He's a dentist, but actually he's got a very dark past, and that informs how he's become quite an angry wrestler. No, he's a dentist that somehow got on a SummerSlam card. Like Duke Drosty's a shoot bin man. I think Shane Douglas is a teacher, but he's trying to say, look, it's not the teacher you need to be worried about. It's the fact that I'm a nasty piece of work when I put the tights on. And what I've tried to do as a teacher is get in your head. He's trying to turn it into a character, but he never manages it. The gimmick overwhelms him, and politically he's on his arse and everything else. But you can divide those wrestlers into two: the ones that take the gimmick and make it a character, and the ones that get trapped in the gimmick for like forever, pretty much.
But I'll always stick up for Douglas. Better to say he is one of mine. I think it's easy to say that as well. That, like, I know Michaels has come out in shoot interviews and said he just wasn't good enough. But I think they were a bit scared of him, the Click. Yeah. I think they really were. That's why they kiboshed him so much. I think the kid like had bad matches on purpose, and I know that's putting the kid down, like your own pride at doing that. But I think they were that like scared, and that was the word, like conniving, that they do that to somebody, that they purposely have bad matches just to get them out the door back then. So I do always stick up for Troy there.
We were saying it on the last show, but like you see it in that WWE Vault footage where like Douglas is just wandering around. He's clearly got no mates. He's the new lad in school, and everyone really hates him because he's done the ECW champion, who's the best champion in the world, who threw the NWA title in the bin and all of that stuff. Exactly. And he already had those enemies, didn't he? So it's more personality based than anything else. He is one as well for it, as well as age, the age game, the time game, the idea that he was knocking around in like the WWF is the 91 Royal Rumble that he's in.
Yeah, 91 Rumble.
He's in so many places you wouldn't expect. This isn't even his first WWF run. That's mind blowing. It's crazy. Oh, love it.
He's you mentioned, Matty, they knew what they had and they were intimidated by him, or they were a bit insecure about what he could do. On that Vault footage, Shawn Michaels just makes a crack about ECW.
Exactly, I was going to say that. Yep.
The Click were watching, and they did know what they had with him, and they would have thought, right, we'll put this big mouth in his box and we'll see how he manages when we do that. And obviously you get what you get in the end. So it's not like, I think all the evidence stacks up against the Click on it, doesn't it?
And it's not just the work either. He had the chance to express himself, like Benno said, in ECW from the title. He was already being shooty and being edgy, like the Click wanted the WWF to be at this time. He was already a good talker, like the Click. You know, I always say Michaels is underrated on the mic. He got there in the end, but they weren't like nailed down as good talkers at this time, where they're thinking, what, he can work, he can talk, and he's already had this bit of like shoot edginess. They were scared. They definitely were.
Same thing. It happened. History repeated itself. It's like what happened with Punk when he first came into WWE, and like Triple H and allegedly Shawn Michaels, but he was one of his backers, being like, he doesn't know how to work big rooms and just making like criteria up. You just think he's a cunt, and you just don't want him. Like that's all it is. Like they find ways, don't they? These lads.
They were intimidated because they couldn't come up with they couldn't in the back of the band. They couldn't have come up with anything as good as Dick Flair. So they were already. That was the original pipe bomb, wasn't it?
Got him to throw one of them out, didn't we, in Birkenhead? Quick story, me and Matty went, you probably heard this before, Michael, me and Matty went to see Shane Douglas do like a Talking Head tour in Birkenhead, in literally an old man pub near the train station, with us and like 10 other people.
Yeah.
Sounds amazing.
No, it was unbelievable, Michael. It was so good.
Sat there with a pint of Carlin, wasn't he, Matty? I think you did ask him about Dick Flair, didn't you? Wasn't that your question?
I asked him about Dick Flair, and the most important one, I asked him about Tori Wilson, what she was like to work with as well.
All the big names.
When I saw him work the ECW arena, man, and Perfect Strangers hit him, my pints up in the air. I got like, this was in 2024, like he's putting the tights on, and it was like he's out there with Francine, and I'm sticking up the three fingers, as Dean Douglas does on this pay-per-view, by the way. I'm sticking up the triple threat. I'm like, God, get the band back together.
Maybe on there. All works.
So if you give me time
like,
to
what about on GRAPPL?
lovely...
You could do like a triple threat mixtape, because you haven't seen much Bam Bam Bigelow. He does some good stuff in that stable.
I was going to say, I want to change this lovely Fed t-shirt I got, because I've got a franchise t-shirt in there. I knew we were going to go in hard on Troy tonight. So yeah, love him.
One in tribute. Gotta love it. But yeah, we'll have more on Shane / Dean Douglas later on. But yeah, to get into the show itself, as we mentioned, the VHS doesn't unfortunately include any bonus matches. I believe it's just the main matches from the pay-per-view, although you do get that lovely preview there. Gotta say, it does. I love the way the VHS covers Keeping Kayfabe, as it is in fact advertising Shawn and Diesel versus Yoko and Owen, which is a story we would tell through the night. I love the Bam Bams on the sleeve on the side of it, as well as like the little star in the pride of place position as well. But we're getting a little bit fancier with the graphics as well for this show. I do appreciate it.
I'm happier with the alignments on this one as well. Like everything was all like that WWF logo in between pure and action's not quite right. But like if you look on the left hand side, it's all the baby faces, and on the right hand side, it's all the heels. And like all the verses are the same font this time, and the number 3 on the spine's actually in line with that squash logo. So they're getting there. They're getting there.
Extra day's work, this one, but yeah, beautiful one that would have had pride of place in my collection back in the day. But we'll get into why the cover is wrong as we do run through the show. And like I say, we do kick off on the main show with commentary from a 3-man booth, like here with Vince, Jerry Lawler, and Jim Ross. Jim Ross's first appearance in our series, isn't it, Michael? Like you say, no coincidence considering who's getting a little bit of power there. He does very much feel like a third wheel. He does feel like he's literally there just to correct Vince. Like when Vince doesn't name the names of moves, he just jumps in and throws them in when it's a water maneuver. He's like, well, actually, Vince, that's a brain buster, mate. He's like, that feels like it's his entire job, but he does a good job.
I mean, I think he's excellent throughout here. And do you know what really stuck out? And I'm assuming you've both got this in your notes. When he says slobber knocker, and both Vince and Lawler are like, what the hell was that? And do you remember that exact same thing happening at WrestleMania 9, but it was with Bobby and Randy Savage? So there was two completely different people that were like, what the slobber knocker? But you can't believe that in 1995, Jerry Lawler's having to ask what slobber knocker is. This is him, and this is Jim Ross and Jerry Lawler's first ever pay-per-view together. And they did a bit of weekend TV. And obviously from here now, Jim Ross finally stops getting the sack. He finally gets his place. He gets a powerful position behind the scenes, and he gets to kind of keep this one on screen. And there's the cowboy hat still to come in that. But the Bill Watts influence is strong. This feels like the best time to mention this as well, because I know Matty will be pleased with this one. Who else does Bill Watts want in the room, somewhat surprisingly, around this time?
Go on. I'm stumped here because automatically I'm thinking of Techno Team 2000. There's son Eric coming in. That's what I'm thinking of.
Eric, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, any guesses here, Benno?
Yeah, I would say Eric.
I
That's
know.
all I can really think of.
No, wait there. Go on, Michael.
Well, Bill Watts quite liked what he read in WWF magazine, and he was the first one to invite Vince Russo into a creative meeting.
Holy fuck.
Bill Watts.
That doesn't make sense, does it? It really doesn't. You got someone so sports-based, someone so fucking horror movie-based, or whatever you want to say, video store-based. Wild.
They're listening to ideas, they're reading the magazine, they're sort of open to trying stuff. Like, if you were reading it at the time, Vic Venom was kind of a captivating column, like The Bite in WWF magazine, and obviously Russo was pretty much doing the whole magazine. He was the Finn Martin of that magazine, wasn't he? And that voice, that magazine's voice, had enough that Russo got in a creative meeting for the first time on the invite of Bill Watts. For the 3-4 weeks he was there. And,
Slash that's who you give thanks to.
Of course.
Maybe we'll get there later in your house. Some Russo stuff.
I love Bill anyway, the Mid-South stuff, but that's it. And I say another nugget for him there. Like, did not know that, Michael. Unreal.
There you go. That Mid-South in the 80s to Heat Bro in the 90s. That's the learning tree.
Well, a character who was getting to a piece, who maybe is where the two sides meet. I can see a bit of Bill Watts, see a bit of Russo. We had Dangerous Danny Spivey opening us up on this pay-per-view. As Waylon Mercy up against Savio Vega. This is Waylon Mercy's pay-per-view debut, I believe. Weird one. They very much sell Savio as the underdog on commentary, and in the story of the match itself, Waylon's in the middle of like his TV push, which is obviously fondly remembered. He's up there, isn't he, Matt, with like Devil on Your Shoulder, Sean O'Hare, and Waylon Mercy. They're the ones where everyone's like, oh, what could have been, because everyone wanted to do. He was like a character. No, he was like a character of Home and Away. Also, I'm sure, like a weird like mystery killer who came from like the other. I know it's Cape Fear, but basically like that version of it. Who's coming to town and he's cutting all these like sinister promos and stuff. He'll always be Waylon Mercy to me, Matty. Danny Spivey, I learned about much later, which he does go back to that name later on in WWF before he fucks off. But right in the midst of it here, mate.
No, but we're going to say, like, what do you mean that he's the underdog, Savio? That should be right. He's only been wrestling a few months, lads, at this point, hasn't he? He's just learned how to wrestle, exactly. So it's like, but Waylon Mercy, Ben, you're right, like, the lore, the fascination around that character still to this day. Like, I find myself putting whatever I can find on, like, because once again, going back to this cassette and this pay-per-view, that insert of like him squashing the worm, I was like, wow, this was like the most mind-blowing thing I'd ever seen when I was a kid. I was like, I want to see more of this guy. I don't want to see him wrestle. I just want to hear him talk. That's where it comes from, probably me ignoring the matches, Michael. I know you're a bit more in my ballpark than Benno regarding that. Like, but honestly, I was just wanting to see these promos, these insets, and there's loads of them out there, like from superstars. He was very rarely on Raw, if I remember. He's more a superstars character, but yeah, and I think, Benno, to your point there about he's always thing, I think you can honestly say if he wasn't that broken down, it would have been even more revered and had a better push. He was just, as we're going to say in this match, he's just broken, and he can't hardly do anything.
Yeah, I think the reason why he's held in such high regard is because a lot of people didn't watch the matches, or a lot of people did just go back and watch the promos, or that would be their memory, because the character did leave something with it. He was a very good video package wrestler, full stop, because in the video package, and I think there's a clip from this that is probably my default mental screensaver of Waylon Mercy, which is he's got Savio in like kind of a sleeper, but it's a choke, and his eyes are just darting around, and when you think of Waylon Mercy, you think of that shot, don't you? And like a baby face that could shake hands with the fans and then become a psychopath within the middle of the match. It just wasn't going to work when the bell rang. And I think what happened for years, and we talked about this on our last Housekeeping, access to this footage from this era wasn't the easiest unless you were buying the tapes. So a lot of Waylon Mercy would have been sort of like passed down. Oh, Waylon Mercy was great. He was Danny Spivey and he got a WWF run, and then you would hear about it and somebody would post it on the internet. Underrated, missed opportunity, blah, 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 blah. but it really understated just how broken down he was. This is not, a guy at the kind of tail end of his career trying to have one last run. And it's like, you might be able to stick the Intercontinental title or something on him. This is a man who was finished. Like, he is too injured to work. If it was a modern day one, you'd be wanting to move him into being an agent. You'd be having him putting over your new guys, phasing him off. It's a shame that the character was given. He was so great at performing it, but like the matches were like, they were miles away from the character work. It's not just a not quite good enough. It's a shouldn't really be in the ring.
And there's also that story, isn't he, of I think Kevin Nash says it on one of his shoot interviews, where like he physically but mentally he weren't ready for the grind of the WWF like schedule at the time. It's like they went on a European tour and they're getting McDonald's in the morning getting the breakfast, and Nash just looks over and just sees Spivey still got the dagger tattoo from the night before, and his eyes are just rolling in the back of his head. He just can't handle the grind. He said he was done at that point, and I think he actually just flew over, never to be seen again. Like, awful.
It's funny, when you talk about like that generation of fans who remembered Waylon Mercy for the promos, not the matches. I mean, that's just Bray Wyatt, isn't it? With all respect, that's pretty much what happened. And he takes the whole character himself, and to be fair, pushed it on as far as like making it an in-ring character more than anything. But that's kind of my main take on the match itself. What you said, Michael, and not like I kind of had on my notes are. This is kind of, a bit plodding, a lot of like heel heat from the Waylon Mercy side. And I was thinking to myself, isn't it basic? Like you said, bit of a choke, a body slam on the outside, feels a little bit fancy, but there's not much more. But he does throw in, it's like a fucking horrible looking back suplex. There's a brainbuster in there. That's where JR calls
brainbuster.
Like, if you just watch the clips, this match would be fucking awesome because Savio's offense, the wheel kick and the stuff that he throws in, he doesn't get much of it. To be fair, in this match, he's very much the underdog. But this is one of those matches, if you watch it in like a 3-minute clip fast forward, you'd think this would be absolutely brilliant. It's just the things in between. But he does pull out some fucking mind-blowing stuff.
It's strange booking because the character has been put over. Savio's been called an underdog. Savio's at a point where, because of what happened at the King of the Ring, you could beat him and it probably wouldn't damage him. So I think they're trying to illustrate the fact that maybe Savio's a contender around here. Maybe he's somebody that you should consider important because he's just beaten Waylon Mercy. But in reality, it doesn't really feel like you're seeing his undefeated streak come to an end. It's you're seeing a career come to an end. He's got, like, as Matty points out, he's about to do some stuff on TV with Diesel, set up some stuff for In Your House 4, but that doesn't develop beyond that because he goes home after a tour, and that is him. You have to wonder if, because so much investment was given to the character, what they then saw on television or in the dark matches or whatever is what ultimately decided that they're going to have Savio go over. It was like, actually, these two are kind of on the same level in the pecking order. Let's just give Savio that. I always think of Steve Austin talking about Savio Vega, and I watch Savio Vega now, like when Austin's podcast first dropped, and he would constantly mention how Savio was the one that got him in WWF cardio shape in '96. I always watch these matches now through a different lens. It's completely made me appreciate the engine on Savio Vega, and I don't think it's that wild if you think the King of the Ring that he was given Mabel, where he was given 4 matches, and the likes of this and the other stuff he would do. At certain points, Savio Vega was being asked to carry wrestlers, and I don't think he's ever really thought of as one of them, but I think that's what internally, I think that's what the office wanted him to do on nights like this.
Yeah, he's the workhorse in a lot of these matches. You're a Savio fan, Matty. Talking the finish, he wins with a heel kick, and they call it an upset. He doesn't get much more in there, but fan of our Savio.
Yeah, I always had a lot of time for him because he gets that one, like, is it not even one night IC title off Goldust, Michael, where they do where Savio wins it and then he gets it back. He's in there with Owen Hart at SummerSlam 96 as well in the opener, which is a bit of an IWC favourite. So he has his moments. I think people just shit on him too much when he's the mystery reveal, isn't he, instead of Shawn Michaels at No Way Out 98. I think he just remembered for that. But like you're saying there about the match, Ben, he just looks in pain. It's on his face, Spivey, isn't it? When he's just getting whipped into the buckles, he's just but that brainbuster though, mate. Like, I've got outrageous in capitals here with a laughing face because it's rough, isn't it? Like it's a movie you wouldn't see on WWF TV at this time, and Waylon Mercy's busting it out. It's bananas.
I've got to say as well on Savio, like, to do whatever you can to get over when nobody's over. and shaving that into the back of his head. Like, and he would sometimes have Savio, and he would sometimes have SV. That's my shit. That's
dedication.
Unbelievable, though, isn't it? But speaking of ears, have you seen? I've got written down as well. Be remiss to mention Mike Chioda's mullet. Did you get on it, lads? Like, honestly, God, we're talking. It's 1995 here. It's prime mullet.
30 years ago, Matty. 30. That's why we did this podcast. That's why we started at the end of 2024, so we could start blowing our own minds with the fact that it's literally 30 years.
Scary.
Yeah.
But there we go. It's a match, and like I say, it gets Savio over. He's obviously going to be a much more useful part of the roster than Whalen for his remaining time. And yeah, we go from there to backstage to the start of I think the story, capital letters, which is half the reason there we've got here on Matty. Is it's our first start of this plot point that goes on through the night. As Owen Hart is not in the building, and Gorilla Monsoon and Jim Cornette are going back and forth backstage. There's a few corny pearlers in there where he's trying to sell the fact, isn't he? Well, he's not in the building, but he's in the state. He's on the way. Like, he's kind of coming. They're laying the groundwork here, aren't they, Matt? And there's some good back and forth here. This is another good performance from Cornette.
This is, and he's got, as I say, he's got Gino to bounce off as well, so he's got perfect partner here. But it's just, as you say, the start of this show-long storyline. But as he said there, he's desperate to get the match off, though, isn't he? Anything to, like he's saying there, he's that heel. He knows that they're in serious jeopardy of losing these titles, Michael, for sure.
It's a bastard's trick, though, isn't it? Because right from the off, like, they get the words out there from Gorilla once again. These fans will not be ripped off when you know you're going to rip people off. Like,
he knows full and well.
Shitty behaviour, this, isn't it? Like, it's sort of. I always think of like, because it's just easy to talk about Vince McMahon, the wrestling promoter, and not everything else. Sometimes that thing that he stuck to about, like, never knowingly false advertise, or if you lose a main event, deliver a better one. Even when he was at his worst, he did sort of try and adhere to that. If an injury takes somebody down, replace it with somebody even better. Shock them. Like, give people something where nobody's asking for a refund because of your replacement. And one of the only times that he just outwardly rejected that was Survivor Series 99, when Austin got hit with a car. They shouldn't have promoted that match, and they did. And I forget this one. Like, and from the very watching this show, to be honest, right, and I love the match. I cannot wait to get to talk about the match. I kind of bristled throughout because Gorilla keeps saying it. Cornette, you are not going to rip these people off. It's like, it's fake. You, the promotion, are ripping people off, and you know you're going to do it. Like, it's not on, and that's how you're going to lose customer faith, and that's how people are going to be like, hang on, there's a pay-per-view main event and a Nitro every week. Maybe I'll just give the WWF a swerve and I'll see what's going on in WCW for a bit. Like, it's a bigger and more damaging mistake. Ultimately, it proves to be a bad call what they do here, but it's just sneaky promotion.
What's like the heel logic as well? Like, so are we supposed to believe, not to jump ahead too much, Owen Hart is legitimately late? Or are we supposed to believe it's like some kind of smart plan where they're like, well, if we put Davey in there, spoilers for later on, like, if we lose, it won't be a real loss? Like, what's the actual kayfabe explanation for what they're playing at?
He wants the match off, doesn't he? He thinks if Owen Hart's not there, he's holding them back. So Gorilla, because it's not like all four people in the match is going to get cancelled. That's what he's kayfabing it. But obviously, Gorilla says, well, no, the match is going ahead regardless. So that's when he has to get the partner, then, which we'll go into later on.
They do the best.
Yeah, he's bottling it, isn't he? That's what it is. He's done all the big talking, and now the show's got here, and he can't actually get out of it. So they've had to hatch this plan day off to try and do it. So
there we go. Well, yeah, we go from there into our second match, which is a face appearance from Henry O. Godwin, the hog himself, versus Sid with Ted DiBiase. Put this on, and I was immediately like, hang on. Henry O. Godwin's a babyface. What's going on here? Which obviously you can fill us in on Michael. And I will say, comes out to absolutely no response. But maybe he does get something out of the people by the end of the night. But yeah, babyface Henry O. Godwin. He's slopped Ted DiBiase, hasn't he? Is that where we're coming from on this?
Yeah, and this is sort of what I was alluding to before. He's not a babyface. He's not a heel. He's a pig farmer. Like he came in as an evil pig farmer, and now he's a nice pig farmer. And there's no such thing as evil and nice pig farmers. There's just fucking pig farmers. Like the story is that he was a hired gun for the corporation, but Ted DiBiase thought he had him in his pocket, and Henry Godwinn thought he was just doing him a favor. And it was very much the same template. Do you remember when Big Boss Man turned babyface when DiBiase was still a wrestler? Yeah. It was like, oh, I'll do your bidding, but I'm not just your man for hire. And that was what Godwinn realized. And then obviously that leads to Godwinn slopping DiBiase to prove that he's not with him. And then in revenge, DiBiase sends Sid after him, and Sid, like a pretty violent spot for the time, Sid does the powerbomb on Godwinn on the floor. So the idea is it's like, for the corporation, just a bunch of losers. That's a pretty big act of revenge for the corporation to take, because obviously DiBiase's been humiliated by getting slopped. And just again, the pig farmer is now doing stuff to baddies instead of goodies. So that's why he's a babyface.
It's a lot of effort in it for Henry O'Godwin. A lot of effort for the corporation, to be honest, at that point as well, Matty. Group of the biggest hate figures on this podcast so far. Are you in?
I've noticed with us? Of me watching, you're not a fan at all, and I'll join in with that. It is probably the worst big, not even heel or face, just stable of all time that actually got a bit of a push, isn't it? Really, because which we'll go into. Like, it's probably the worst use of Sid in his entire career. Would you say? Like, I think you've said that, isn't it? It's like didn't need a mouthpiece, didn't need to be in a group. What are we doing here in a mid card? Sid should be in the main event, shouldn't he? That's all he's ever should be in. It's finger, but Sid did get a slopping, didn't he? As well, Michael, in this build up. So at least we've had that as well. Sid actually got a slot, which once again should Sid even be in that position? I don't know. Should he?
I've got that in my notes, Matty. That like you can see why. You can see why promoters put Sid in the main events every time. And then you could see why Sid would just walk away when he couldn't be arsed, or when softball was on. You know how Austin used to say, like Steve Austin always used to say, like, or like maybe it was somebody talking about Austin by 2002. It was like, that character is a very hard character to slide down the card. Like, and I'm sure Steve Austin said it as well. Like, but
doesn't exist, Michael. Mid-card Steve doesn't exist, even if there's footage out there.
And mid-card Sid doesn't either, does it? This is the thing. Exactly. You're seeing it here. Second on against the pig farmer, I'd leave as well. Like he does not, like, he comes back in a year's time and he's the top guy like that, and all it's taken is walking away for a bit. He does not fit in a role like this.
But even his look, like, he's still got the great, like, shoulders, but he's slimmed down, and he's got that, like, short, like, skinny mullet. Like, too short. He just doesn't look right, does he? There's just something off about his whole 95. After that great angle, though, Benno, where he does powerbomb Shawn Michaels 97 times, as we've seen on the replays. But other than that, it's a proper rough run, this, for Sid.
That's it. And it's a weird, like I say, weird side step to get over Henry O'Godwin. I'd say the match, there isn't much going with the match. I think the crowd do eventually get with Henry O'Godwin, which was a surprise for me. I wasn't expecting that to happen. I was expecting just silence right the way throughout it. It is the match where we do get the slobber knocker call from Jim Ross, to which when he's getting grief about being from Oklahoma, I think is it Vince that throws in Miss America this year's from Oklahoma, which is a very 1995 reference in there as well. But as a match goes, I don't know if you have got many notes. Like, the biggest thing is the finish, really, isn't it? DBS getting involved in tripping up Henry, and then the post-match that comes as well. Do you have much more, Matt?
No, to be fair, like I've said, don't everyone go out there and go and watch this. I'm not saying, like, you've got to go and watch this, but to be fair to them, I love the little psychology with Godwin's back. Like Michael said, he hit the powerbomb on the floor in the build-up, and then JR references that his back's not there, and even it's simple, but just going for that slam earlier on, Henry goes for the back. Sid works on, obviously, Sid. I mean, we all love Sid, and God rest him, but one of the worst actual wrestlers of all time. Yeah, if we're talking about being in ring, and especially, like, I always stick for him, like, he's worse on the defense. I don't want to see himself, but even when he's in control, all he does is dig and stomp. He doesn't do anything, does he? He doesn't do any moves. But
his camel clutch, it looks comfy. I want to sit in his camel clutch and relax. It's like getting into an armchair. It's so gentle, like.
But his offense here does work because of that back, so you can just stomp and dig and give this like the cozy camel clutch, as we'll call it. But it's like And it does work into the finish as well, where, all right, the powerbomb is a great finish anyway, but especially on that injured back. So I'll give them psychology credit on this. But well, as you say, the stuff in between, Ben, like you said earlier about other matches, maybe not there. But the biggest take I got from this match, lads, was once again, I'm on referee watch. Danny Davis in that long sleeve in '95. My head was gone. I thought he was well gone at this point, mate. But he still busted out that long sleeve. It was good to see.
Now, I don't particularly care for black and white stripes in general, but the long sleeve variant of it on dangerous Danny Davis in the new generation, I couldn't wrap my head around that. Like, imagine him reffing like a Bret match and then remembering that they tagged together at WrestleMania 3. You can't. That just
doesn't make sense, does it?
Doesn't compute, does it? No. My only other sort of takeaway, because it's all about just the poor quality of most of this. You can kind of see why Godwin, they always had a go with Godwin, because he's standing next to Sid and he's pretty much the same size. Like, he's not got the body, but like height wise, he's a kind of a giant that you forget was that big. And he's right nose to nose with Sid here. So someone like his size is always going to get a go. And a bit like your good friend Baron Corbin, Matty, before Drew McIntyre decided to take it at WrestleMania 38, that slop drop was protected for a long time.
It was
weird how they protected that slop drop. Yeah. Like, it was a while before. I can't remember even. Do you know what it was? It was probably like a massive babyface in '98 that first was given the kick out for the slop drop, because that was putting like the LOD down as well. Like, that was a bit of a kill shot, that slop drop.
You're forgetting why the main reason he kept having a go, Michael. He liked the game of Bones, though, didn't he, old Mark Canterbury?
Of course,
he did like a game, didn't he?
Old Hank.
But it did like at the end, though, Sid as well. And it even gets like Jerry Lawler, a legit shoot laugh, I think, where Sid like mocks Henry Godwin and pushes him out the ring like he's the pig, like he used to do to them. I love Sid doing that. I hope that was on the fly as well by Sid. I'll give him that one.
It'll always be the slop drop to me as well. Even like 2 years into Sting using it, wasn't Scorpion Death Drop. Still call her a slop drop. That's work rate. There was Amazing Red in the 2000s, Matty, in the 90s. It was Henry O'Godwin who was coming up with all this.
But Benno,
innovation.
Which we'll go into the post-match here. Have you actually figured out what slop is yet? Because I heard you rant on here.
Gets a pop, doesn't it? Apparently it's a babyface move to slop the man. But it does. It genuinely does get a pop, doesn't it? As like you say, obviously Sid and DiBiase were both grabbing the slop bucket. Bam Bam comes out for the save, doesn't he? Kama Mustafa does the big jump as well. All the stars are here. I feel like I'm saying it, and it does end with Henry putting the slop bucket over DiBiase's head. He sells it well. He gets it over.
It does, yeah. Like, it looks like he's covered in milk, doesn't it? It looks like like milk's falling off a high shelf onto him. I feel like the first sort of intra-podcast story that we're kind of documenting here from In Your House 1, here we are in Your House 3, is the sad life of Bam Bam Bigelow, because it just gets more and more pathetic with every passing month.
Yeah, he's on the spine of the video. He's doing well. He probably got still getting residuals. He's getting residuals for that for years.
He comes out for his running before he has his match, so he's lost his pop. He can't come out in his entrance gear. Oh, yeah. Like, he paid money for them little fire spooters, and he can't even use them now. Like, he's not even Diesel and Sean's friend anymore. He's just like, he's a pig farmer's mate.
He's a fucking loser.
He's one of the worst.
For the Bama.
It's not even 1 foot out the door at this point, though. You can just tell he's got like the other foot following very close by. But the funniest part about this for me is, and the slop, it is great shot of DiBiase. He's got like that plant, like it look like it's grown out the back of his head. Did you get onto that? It just sticks there for ages. I love that.
He does a good job. He sells it once with the slop bucket stuck on his head, and that's a good visual. And then he lets it drop, and then you get the face visual as well. Old school worker.
Proper pro, isn't it? Yeah.
There we go. But yeah, that's that. And we go backstage as we continue with the night long story with Gorilla and Cornette. This is where Gorilla convinces Corny that he can get himself another partner if he does so choose for Yokozuna. Corny continues to sell it really well, but they kind of sell it like, well, you've got a few minutes. It's a bit longer than that. You've got a couple of hours. You can find some of the backstage, and sets us off on Cornette's mission for the rest of the night. But,
No,
yeah, from
can I?
from there.
No, we can't. No. This is the moment. This is the moment,
okay.
lads. Right. First, I'm going to throw at you, Michael. You might have this as well.
Oh, right.
How old is Doc Michael Hayes Hendricks at this point in time?
Well, if I happen to know the answer, can I at least, because can I give you the answer with an additional fact about the answer, right?
Of course you can.
Is that all right? Is that okay? Let me just find it, because it pops up a little bit later in mine. Right. So I happen to know, Matty, that Doc Hendricks in this is 36 years old. Right? Oh, wait, this gets worse, Benno. This gets worse. Which means he is the same age as Diesel.
He's
got a world title running him.
No, but lads, I can trump that. Because Doc Hendricks is the interviewer. Yep. He's interviewing Jim Cornette. How old is Jim Cornette at this present time?
Oh, no, I'm scared. Now it's going to be 29 or something. I think 30s.
It's got to be 40. I'd say he's 40 because he was working with Hayes in that, but he always looked older than Hayes in the. You know what I mean? I'll say 40 here.
Okay.
I'll say 39 to stay on the 30 side.
Right. Now, listen, lads, there's no way I can sugarcoat this. I might get a static, I might get loud, I might get whatever here. Right. So, Jim Cornette. So, take this into proper context. The week before, he'd only just turned this age, okay? So, a week before, he was 1 year less than I'm going to tell you he is right now. So, get that into your minds, okay? As this pay-per-view is, he had just turned 34. So a week earlier, he was 33 years of age, lads. I can't, it just doesn't it doesn't make sense at all, seriously. I was gone off that. Jesus Christ, lads. Seriously, that's the worst one. That's right.
That's so I had a suspicion. I thought, I need to fact check this now. Bret was 38 in 95. Bret.
Cornette looks 10 years older than Bret. He does. There's no way about it. He does.
It's all on burgers, isn't it? All that Wendy's.
A week before, though, 7 days before, he was 33 years of age. Honestly, the more I say it, I just can't.
Now I'm scared they're going to find out Gorilla Monsoon's actually younger than all of them. Feels likely based on this.
So wait a minute then. If he was 33 right up to this point, it was 92 when he has that massive explosion at that Wendy's, right? So that massive tantrum he has at a Wendy's in 92 was the work of a 29-year-old man.
He's 29 when he's managing Yokozuna, Michael. What's going on? But this the thing. Was he, at least with Hayes, he used to drink the drugs. Did Cornette do all that? He just looked old. Yeah. What's going on? He just looked at it.
That's all it is. Burgers on the road.
Sprite as well. Full fat Sprite, really, as well.
God.
Those trips to Vince's house, it's all that put together.
But sorry, lads, I had to get that in there.
Unbelievable.
Oh, well, on that bombshell, we go from there into our next match. And I was going to say, what I do like is the little bit of synergy as we're kind of talking about it. Cornette's like, how am I going to find a partner on one night's notice? What am I going to do? Background, British Bulldog's theme starts to play and he comes out. They didn't do it on purpose. It's kind of perfect as we go into it, and obviously the commentary explains. It's a busy period for Bulldog. Like I say, he's going to be all over these In Your Houses going forwards as a heel. He's also apparently working the Undertaker the night after on Raw, as well as doing a double duty later tonight. But he comes out for a heel Davey. Different look here as well, Michael. As we're post Allied Powers here, and Lex Luger is very much in the rear view as Bulldog comes out here to face Bam Bam.
Yeah, this is like our first look at his new look, obviously in the In Your House journey. I was never a Bulldog fan as a kid. So, like, as a babyface, I saw him at the Sheffield Arena in '92 against IRS, and my mom likes to tell me how I was cheering for the one in the suit instead of Davey Boy Smith. So it was obviously this weird stubbornness I had against. I can't tell you why. I don't know why.
You can, because you like American stuff and you eat British stuff. Like that's me and Matty the same way.
I'd agree with you.
You've got a British flag on your gear. Fuck off.
No, I'd agree, but it was IRS though, Michael. I mean, I had to
American than winning. American taxes. How'd you get more American than that?
True.
Matty, in the UK, IRS is the biggest babyface. He's looking after the NHS and the roads and things like that. IRS just wants, like, IRS would be a Labour MP in the UK. It's fine. No. Bulldog turning right. So, like, again, it's always linked to your memory of how you discovered a thing. I remember getting the tape of SummerSlam that somebody had taped for me, and they alluded to after what happened with the Bulldog, I'm like, what happened with the Bulldog? And then you see him arrive at the arena and he's like in his shades and he's like, get out of my face. And you're like, what the hell's happened with the Bulldog? And then he never turns up in the main event because it's Lex instead. And I think it was like a magazine that I got around the time. It absolutely blew my mind that they had turned the British Bulldog heel. This was just like, if they were looking for shock and they were looking for, like, who's that one person that you can't turn? I'm not saying it's quite like John Cena, but there were just some wrestlers that never in a million years would you have imagined going bad. And then they found one here. Now, it doesn't turn out that well, really. But, like, they, for what they were trying to get, a brand new out-of-the-box heel, it was probably one of the best choices on the whole roster. The haircut, the Bulldog rather than Davey Boy Smith, the tights were class. Like he was looking the absolute business. He wears his regular ones here, and then when he's in a title match, he's got some gold ones in his bag because he wants to dress like a champion. Like an overnight light switch of a, like, you know, when you see a wrestler getting a push and they actually like run with the ball. I have to give it to him. Like here at least he is running with the ball, and you can't not get behind a wrestler that is trying to grab that opportunity with both hands and make the most of it.
Is this your bash at the beach, Michael? Is this your Hogan turn the heel moment? It's like, it's kind of the same thing, isn't it? You know, new gear, new look, new everything.
Yep.
That's what I like about it. It's like whether the work holds up or not, and we're actually going to spend a lot of time finding out whether the work holds up or not, especially the times when Bret or Sean isn't on the other ends of the ring. We'll find out whether the work holds up or not. But I always love that, Matty, when somebody does that, when they go all in. It's like, well, I'm a new character, so I've got to present myself differently. I've got to look different. It's like not just the haircut and the gear. It's almost like his body shape starts to change again, which is probably, you know, the era that we're in and everything going on in real life too at the same time. But he looks. We joke about it, don't we, on GRAPPL all the time, Matty? He looks like a different human at this point, Bulldog, and that's exactly what he should do.
He looks taller, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Like, because he's coming in, he goes tall, Michael.
Bikers to long pants kind of does that too, yeah.
But it's also what you said there, like if anyone's going to like get a fresh coat of paint and be a heel, Bulldog, and perfect once again, aligning him with Cornette, because one thing Bulldog always did need, you know, he's hilarious on the mic, don't get me wrong, but he's not good. So you're putting him in there with Cornette, you can do his talking and selling, because once again, doing a bit of digging, I think it's his debut promo on Superstars, and Cornette, as you said there, Michael, like Davey Boy Smith's dead, it's the British Bulldog now, and Cornette's just unreal at delivering this new character right in front of your eyes that you would genuinely think, if he wouldn't have said Davey Boy Smith's dead, you would have thought this was a new wrestler. That good.
In that promo, the Bulldog's got his back to the hard camera. Like Cornette and Vince and Davey's just got his back to you the whole time. You're like, mate. That Undertaker match the next night, that beat Nitro the following night. You know, the match they're promoting, it beat Nitro. So briefly, they had something with him.
The dead man, Michael, that's what you'd expect.
Well, yeah.
I think that's just where they got the idea to turn Hogan. That's where the money is, turn one of these beloved baby faces heel. But as far as the match goes, lads, what do we think of the work here? A little bit. I don't think JR doesn't say bowl and shoe ugly here, but he probably could have. But yeah, again, it's set up to give Bulldog a big win, and you know, Bigelow to continue to be a big fat loser that he is in this period. But yeah, much to say of note over the 12 minutes for you, Michael.
Bam Bam hits his finish and it's nout. He just hits the flying headbutt and it's a 2 count and then they carry on. Bam Bam bumps on the floor and then he ends up with slop on his arse for the rest of the match. You're just like,
sums it up.
Nothing's going Bam Bam's way. I quite liked Bulldog. Like, it wasn't the idea wasn't bad matchmaking, because there's a couple of times where like Bulldog is able to lift Bam Bam and visually that's really impressive. But like, yeah, it's a clean win for a character they're pushing against a guy they've given up on who was also given up. So you kind of the wrestlers never really convince you anything other than that is happening.
Yeah,
good or bad, it's a struggle, Matt. In many ways.
Like I give them like credit for trying here. They try and have like a good match, and you can see that they're working on it. But there's just something off. And Davey, like you've alluded to, I had that in my notes, Benno. Like, he's just better led, isn't he, by a Sean, who literally holds his hand and say, "We're having this match."
Because physically, he's really gifted,
great at that. Yeah, he's great at that and following. Whereas I think Bigelow. Once again, I don't want to feel like I'm adding to the pylon on Bam Bam here, but like, is he trying to lead him or is he trying to get his shit in? Is he trying to, even though the outcome of this match is to get Davey over more and with this push, but there's just something a bit off about it. And yeah, but it is a clean win. I like that though. It's clean as a sheet as well. I do like that aspect of it with a little snap slam, isn't it? More than the actual, running power slam Bulldog does. But but they do try. I've got to give them that.
And I will say, Matty, to throw in a grapple plug there, I feel like this might have we did the best matches in Bam Bam's career on a mixtape. Might have made it, actually. Or at least
he's honourable mention.
He honestly could.
But it is, he's just not long for this federation, is he though, Michael? Like, he's, as I said before, I've got me notes, he's got 1 3/4 of his feet out the door. Like, it's literally doing jobs for Goldust, the Survivor Series, stuck coming, and then he's done, isn't he? He's gone then, he's gone.
I mention it all the time, but literally his write-off is we talked about Vince Russo / Vic Venom in WWF magazine, and I always remember the page in WWF magazine where it's like the title was "Gone Fishing," and it was like, "We'd like to wish Bam Bam Bigelow the best of luck in future. He's decided to retire from the squared circle, head back to his native New Jersey, and he's going to enjoy the fishing. Happy fishing, Bammer." And it's like, no, he was in ECW. But Kidney just believed that, bought it. It was like, oh well, Bam Bam's gone forever. What a shame. Not really a shame, to be honest, if you watch the TV portrayal. But speaking of which, if there's nothing more on the match, I'd say, Michael, the juxtaposition here, to your point, is we follow this up with a Superstar Line commercial for WrestleMania, the special gets its footage here on Fox, which they're very quick to tell you about. I know they kept this up until at least recent years and brought it back a couple of times, but yeah, we're a little bit further down the year, only a few months, and that WrestleMania the special ad has got Shawn Michaels as a heel in the main event of WrestleMania, and it's got Bam Bam Bigelow as a heel in, I suppose, the true main event of WrestleMania coming off the back of this. Like, couldn't be at a more different world only a few months later.
That's it, yeah. They're just trying to wring it dry onto the fact that like Bigelow and LT, like, it never really delivered the way they wanted at the time, but they think, oh well, we'll give it a rerun. People might take to it. Diesel and Shawn, like, I don't know, like, I guess because they're being pushed as the main eventers, there would have been a bit of intrigue but yeah, it's so soon afterwards for so much change. It's I don't think now, like, as much as we think probably things move fast because there's so much content. If you were watching a pay-per-view double header from AEW or WWE, it would still feel quite familiar, wouldn't it? Compared to where would it be at, like Basham Berlin or something now. That'd be the same time frame. That's Gunther versus Randy Orton. You could book that tomorrow.
Yeah.
Like, it was already worlds apart.
Crazy. But speaking of which, we go from there back to your boy Troy, Matthew, as we have Dean Douglas and Razor Ramon set up here. And like I say, a little bit obviously later on, Shane would be a persona non grata, but he's in a story with one of the Click lads and in Razor. Have you got many happy memories of this feud before we get to the match itself, Matt?
Well, before the match as well, we got Mr. Bob Backlund doing the big intro.
Doing the intro. I was going to ask what you thought of him as Troy's mouthpiece, throwing in complicated words as Wade Keller says in The Torch that he's just using wrong. I love that little side swipe from
But you can tell he's trying to remember the words, Bob. It's not like his actual vocabulary. He's trying to remember these himself. Someone's written them down for him. But like, I know what, at the time, and I'm guessing I fell into what they wanted. I hated Mr. Bob Backlund. I couldn't stand that character. He was a relic from the past, was only like 43, you know what I mean, genuinely, but he was seen as this relic, wasn't he? But as I've got older with an older head, I do love this character. Like, he just, that angle with Bret Hart on the Superstars where he won't let go of the chicken wing and that, all time, I like it, just a snap character. So, once again, Michael turning from one ultra babyface into this heel that you wouldn't expect, but what a changing character as well. All timer for me, that as a thing. But and he's still knocking about the place, don't get me wrong, he's like 95 here, but I think this is the best thing for him, being, even though I don't think Troy needed a mouthpiece, they're just trying to give him that extra, like, you know, what's the way, like, credits with like having Backlund associated with him, and the characters do kind of go together. Exactly, there you go. It does, so it does make sense here. But we'll go into the match, Ben. But the feud, as you say, he's in there with someone who's, I think I said it on one of our shows, the absolute definition. I think I said this on the recent Bret show. Razor Ramon of an upper mid-carder, isn't he? Like, he was never that main event, but he was never made for me. He was just the definition of always in that IC run. He was always featured, always promoted great. So he couldn't have been put in a better position here, Dean Douglas. But like we said earlier on, the real life politics come into play, unfortunately.
I'll say that about Razor before we even get to the politics of the Click versus Shane Douglas. It's funny you mentioned that, Matty, because this was right around the time, wasn't it, where like Razor was becoming increasingly annoyed about how bad the payoffs were.
Yes.
And he'd campaigned to fight The Undertaker as a heel at WrestleMania 11. And it was like, yeah, maybe. And then it got knocked back, and he was back in the IC picture with Jeff Jarrett. And then he's back in the IC picture with Shawn, but it's a compromise because he's working with his friends, all that kind of thing. But then he's seeing Shawn and Diesel getting those runs, and he puts himself in that place, and Vince McMahon just doesn't see it. So while I think I agree with you, and it's sometimes water finds its level, and as much as I love Scott Hall's work, some people do just fit better in slots. Here is a man at this point trying to figure out how to actually break that glass ceiling. And ultimately what that leads to is signing for WCW, because at least the money is, because he wants the main event spot, but it's not just a pride thing, it's a cash thing. And however it's going to turn out in WCW, he's got the cash now. So like, I think you start to get that. I would imagine if you're already in a bit of a political war with the Click, it's made even worse if you're on the wrong side of Scott Hall, because he's an increasingly unhappy man on this roster. And you can see how many like compromises are made to try and keep him happy. And this is not one of them. Like, working, he's not going to be told, oh, you know that push you wanted? You're not getting it. And we're going to put you with somebody you don't like for 3 months.
Yeah. And also, Michael, after that, where he abrupts it, look at the feud that he's in after it, which, you know, all the news, which is like the Goldust feud, which ultimately leads to him leaving. So it doesn't get better for him, does it? So you're right there, mate. Didn't think of it like that. Great stuff.
That's it. And like I say, I'm sure he's happy to put Shawn over at SummerSlam, but yeah, when it's in there.
Shawn getting his win back, though, on his mate at the end of the day, isn't it? Like, he tried to blow Kevin Nash up at WrestleMania 11, which Nash is laughing about. He meant that, Shawn. And Shawn got this rematch back because he wanted his win back. Of course he did.
There you go.
He's the best, isn't
he?
Not going there.
Click me. Yeah, better than Bret, I agree. Razor, we'll get the Bret trope again. So, yeah, obviously, Razor being Razor, it's one of those matches that's designed to kind of continue to get this Dean Douglas character over, which, like we said, with the pre-show, with the Bob Backlund stuff, whatever you think of it, they're clearly making an effort here. Razor just slaps him around for like what feels like 75% of the match. Dean's knocking around in that silly singlet with his kick pads kind of slipping down his knees, and we'll get to the finish in the end. It's obviously more about, again, keeping Razor happy. Well, if you're not happy with this, maybe we can do something with one of your clickmates instead to justify your loss. So at least he gets to work with one of his mates going forward before the stuff that really sets in the rot, as you said, Matty. But as a core of a match, really, like I say, it does feel like the Razor show here, and he's clearly not letting this younger Dean Douglas get much here. There isn't much to say about Dean himself and his work in the match. Don't know what you've got on this one, Michael.
I think this is like one of the most disgusting burials you will ever see on a pay-per-view. And it's not an Undertaker burial where he's just kind of obvious with it, you know, like where he just squashes somebody and he just makes them look an idiot. It's not a burial where like some bad creative embarrasses a wrestler because they're given us stupid gimmicks. Cesaro yodeling, a million of them. Like, it's not even like a finish that you can't believe, like Triple H pinning Booker T at WrestleMania 19. There are so many examples of different ways that people get buried and the famous burials that people talk of. This is not discussed like those, because ultimately the consequences don't really seem that dire. A mid-carder has beaten another mid-carder. You win some, you lose some. Some careers go well, some careers don't, and on we move. And it's from a period that not a lot of people watched. So it feels like not a lot of damage is being done. But to know Shane Douglas's career and to know Shane Douglas's trajectory, all the damage is done. His WWF run dies in this match. So his WWF career dies in this match. And he's got to go back to ECW, tail between his legs. And it can never be the same franchise because he's sold out 6 months earlier. Like, that's a bridge that you almost can't walk back across. He does it, but it's never the same because, like it's like Steve Austin going to WCW in 1999 and trying to come back in 2001. You'd be glad to get the rattlesnake back, but you almost couldn't believe that you'd been betrayed 2 years earlier, But that's what Douglas is left with because it pretty much gets destroyed in one match. Razor Ramon's performance here is amongst the most unprofessional I think you will ever see on a WWF pay-per-view. It's not just the agent in the match, which he clearly has complete control of. Like, clearly. It's like, if the heel calls the spots, like Razor's telling Dean what to call, because you simply wouldn't call this match. Watch it, and it doesn't even make sense as a match. Benno, you always use the style guide. I've never taken a bump in my life. There is not a single style guide that you could find that would book this match with this layout. Dean Douglas, the wrestler, is trying to get any move on Razor, and Razor, the street fighter with the sort of the street toughs, is now suddenly Kurt Angle with an amateur background that counters everything he does. When Dean Douglas gets him in a hold, the camera leans in on Razor. What's your job when you're a babyface selling a hold? You're supposed to be reaching through the screen for support. You're supposed to be getting somebody in row Z to just power you back to life. Razor is actively looking bored. He is no selling. The line of his mouth is a straight line. I honestly implore people to go back and watch this because I don't think it's talked about enough. The scale of the burial. This is a man destroying another man's gimmick, destroying his ability as a worker because Vince McMahon is sat at that commentary table watching this happen. His boss, the man that pays his wages, is not going to want to keep using him because he's going to trust Razor, because he's going to trust the click. He's going to listen to the 1, 2, 3 kid, the litmus test, and then he's going to be like, see, I told you shouldn't have put him on pay-per-view. I told you, Vince, he's not the guy. This is like building this case that, like, it doesn't matter what you think of Shane Douglas. They could have taken the greatest of all time and they could have done this. They are doing it to him. Dean Douglas has no power in this. It's supposed to be a dance. It's supposed to be a partnership, and it's supposed to be rooted in trust. And short of injuring him, this is about as a bigger knife in the back as I think you'll ever see. Like, I had forgotten the scale of the burial right down to the finish, right? Where Razor batters the kid, pushing him out the ring, like to set up how it's going to get. Yeah, it's going to get pretty violent between them two. There is not a single thing in the match that he's done to Dean Douglas that is as hard as the shove that he gives to the 1, 2, 3 kid, right? And then when the interference doesn't work, which by the way makes no sense because the kid looks a complete idiot making the count.
Why is he there?
But when the interference doesn't work, right? The roll up where he's got the handful of tights looks shit. And it's all Razor's fault. You've seen that roll-up done a gazillion times, and Razor's just let his body go limp so that the roll-up doesn't even look like he's got his shoulders down. Douglas wins, and his music has stopped before Razor's even up off the canvas, and he's out the way so we can get to Razor and the kid. It is an astonishing piece of television to watch in how to destroy a wrestler's career.
To that finish before you go, Matty, it's got to be said, it looks awful. And that's the thing, you can if you know what you're doing and you know Razor, you can pin that on Douglas. But you're right, he's in such a position that he can't even, like, Douglas is supposed to grab the tights, but he's in a spot where, like, the only way he can grab the tights, he'd literally have to expose Razor's entire bare ass and bollocks, I think, just to properly do it. And obviously, knowing the political landscape at the time, he's being as careful as he can, which makes it look even worse. So, as you said, Michael, he's got no leverage whatsoever. And it's all about the kid and Razor and where they're going with that. And, like, that is 10 times more compelling than anything they do with your boy Troy here, Matty.
Yeah, but as Michael said, it is that bad. You'd rather just Razor get the win after like a 60-second squash, you know what I mean, more than all this, because ultimately it's because he has to do this job. That's all it comes down to. He's got to put this new guy over, which once again, I keep saying throughout this whole show, the whole clique was scared of. That's all it was. I've finally got a platform to say this now. Defense for you, lads. Thank you. But it is, no, but it's right, Michael. Everything you said is right. It's so bad. It's so unprofessional. But that finish that's the epitome of it all. The time where you're all doing the business, you're all taking the fall. He's got that shoulder up. He has to move him, as Benno said. What a shout, Benno. You're right. He can't expose his whole thing because it just make him look even worse on every aspect of it. He's got nothing to fall on, has he? He can't do a thing yet except for just get on with it and swallow it. It's bad. It is bad.
There's a line Jim Ross says on commentary, and this speaks to Jim Ross, the man that is like gradually becoming like the head of talent liaisons. He's working towards that role, and he knows his job is to get everybody over. There's 3 wrestlers on screen here. I'll get them all over. So Dean Douglas isn't even in the shot as he says this. It's Razor and the Kid pushing each other, and Jim Ross goes, Dean Douglas has destroyed their relationship. And like, of course you would say that because you got to get something. Shane Douglas has got to get something out of this, right? Yeah. And Vince corrects him and goes, I'm not sure about that. I think it might already be destroyed. So at that point, Vince is taking that off him. He's like, no, don't make him responsible for it. Like, you're watching a career die. It's like, a run, a push, like a gamble, a massive gamble that Shane Douglas took. And it's
that's just, the sad thing is that like, Douglas is trying. He's being ultra professional. He's bumping round. So just think if Razor was, this could have been such a great match. It really, really could have. If they both had that thing, it would have been a great match as well. That's obviously a sad thing in itself. It's poor.
And he's eating shit, really hasn't he? To do this whole gimmick, like considering what he was before and the way he presented himself and everything, all the shit he talked, that he's got to be like this school teacher gimmick, this Matt Striker before Matt Striker, like that's already like swallowing your pride, isn't it, to try and pull it off to like a satisfying degree. And
Michael said there, and it's a great point. It's like it's on for me even there. Like he's got to go back to the most hardcore of fans that know all this shit. Like if it was the other way around, Michael, he has to come back to WWF. Like at this time, we weren't really clued up or smartened up, but them fans have been smartened up since day one. So imagine like he's feeding going back to ECW. Thinking, I'm going to get, and I haven't seen that TV when he comes back. I'd like to get more familiar with that era of ECW. It's like, do they boo him? Do they just accept him open arms? But what's the word I'm looking for? Like the feelings inside of him must have been, bloody hell, these might just shit on me when I come back here.
Absolutely.
He got quite lucky because he was used as a baby face to try and stop Brian Pillman like pissing in the ring and going mad.
Okay.
And like, so they kind of embraced him because Pillman had worked all those smart fans.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden he was this incredible heel in the ECW arena. And like of all the people, rather than it being someone like a Tommy Dreamer, it was like Shane Douglas coming out and like, I'm not going to take that kind of thing. And that people were willing to be like, well, we got worked by him, so we like you more than him now because he actually managed to fool us. So we know you, Shane. So that was kind of how, I think that was how they worked around that.
Layers of reality as well, because he does the thing with Bubba Dudley, doesn't he, where he like corrects him on like his English or something like that as Dean Douglas, and then throws the gimmick in the trap and gets over the fact that that stuff you were watching me do on TV, that wasn't real. This is real. So I mean, if you try to map that out and try and make it make sense, it doesn't on any level. But like that's what you can do, isn't it? It's again another Jim Cornette trick, when you'd have like the Bashams, where he's just like they're a team now. I don't know, they made up somewhere. The Boogeyman, he went insane at some point. Actually, that's how he ended up on the main roster. They come up with a way to explain that like proper WWF doesn't count, it isn't real.
I always loved Shane in ECW with Born Again when they had Matt Bourne wearing the doink, but without the paint, and then they would put the doink wig on the person they'd beaten. And it was like Shane Douglas has found like Doink from his old Fed days, and he's a psychopath, and he's brought him in with him. Like I thought that was great.
Brought him back, perfect. But I was going to say, I suppose one positive, all those negatives are true, and it's a shame because, like you say, you can see it in real time. It's like the Simpsons one where you can freeze and see his heart breaking. Like start of this night, or at least start of this tape, they're all in on Dean Douglas. They're throwing the video packages at it. Vince is clearly high on it, and it's that bullying mentality, isn't it? He sees the cooler, bigger boy Razor Ramon slap him round, and like you said, Michael, you can almost hear it in the commentary that Vince is like, all right, actually, maybe we are done with this now. I've got that army system. Let's move on. A positive, I would say, And it's the thing that Razor actually does put the effort into. The 1, 2, 3 Kid back and forth is brilliant. You said how physical it gets, but it really does. Like it's layered it's funny because obviously on the last episode on Housekeeping, we were talking about 1, 2, 3 Kid and Bret Hart, and the way you'd love it, it'll be a Bretro episode at some point, that Matty, the 1, 2, 3 Kid Bret match from Raw. Like I'm sure it's coming. I'm sure it's on your spreadsheet. Definitely, get Bretro wherever GRAPPL podcasts are sold. It'll be a great episode when it comes out. But part of that match is justifying Bret being the bully and kind of justifying his role in that match. Like this for me justifies everything that's to come with 1, 2, 3 Kids and the heel turn and everything. Because Razor is the knobhead here. Razor is the one who's like pushing him, like literally like you said, Michael, like forcing him all to the ring, and is pretty much the primary aggressor. Somewhat justified because it really doesn't make sense why 1, 2, 3 Kids out there. Jim Ross has to point it out on commentary. What's he doing here? Huh? Why is he in the ring? And it's it's plausible deniability, and it leads to like fisticuffs and a little back and forth that like you believe. It does feel like two mates who've just had that snap moment in the pub, and they're pushing each other back and forth, and it could get much more serious if it doesn't get stopped. That part of it is actually excellent for me.
It's very good foreshadowing as well, because the Kid's eventual turn on Razor comes as like a referee, but DiBiase has paid him off. But Razor obviously thinks, well, Christ, he'll do that for me. Like as a run-in in a match, I can trust him as like a referee in the ring, even when the friendship's starting to fracture. So at least they are seeding how the heel turn is going to take place. Like he's the literal 1, 2, 3 Kid. And that's what got him over against Razor, and that's what's going to turn him against Razor. So it is quite nice how they kind of tie all that up when it comes to the heel turn. But it's Click versus Click in it, so it would be.
He's going to, exactly, and he's going to be interested. That's why it looks good, because he's asked. Fucking hell. But it also, I do like the little nuggets as well on the Sunday Night Slam, where they play off where 1, 2, 3 Kid gets that victory over Razor again because of Dean Douglas. I love that of like 2 years later, because as you said, he's still... the road he's beating him, he's still that underdog, isn't he? But he could still, although it would help, he still manages to beat Razor Ramon. I love that little bit of story he told in there, so I love that.
Very well done. But more of that to come in the coming episodes. But yeah, from that match where we do go, we have a Great White North advert. Speaking of In Your Houses that are coming up, Goldust is coming. We're told our first view of this Goldust character. It does get talked up a little bit, but it's Doc, isn't it, that talks it up? Doc Hendricks does the little impression of him here as well. And we do have Doc here shilling 1-800 Titan 9. Was that the telephone number where for the low price of $25 you could get yourself a Shawn Michaels hat, a Shawn Michaels glasses, and a free tape, lads. I know you like your physical media, Matty. Yeah. Doesn't look that appealing, this free tape. It's the same free tape that they have a London Blaze out with later on.
There's no cakes either, is it?
It looks like is it a JVC that we used to have? It looks like one of them. Looks like the tape over.
Never X is the one. Scotch as well was a good one.
They did good long play ones. They did.
240s, but not 180s. They would class them.
They're the ones you wanted, weren't they? Would you pay $25 for this collection, Matty? I'm sure you wouldn't, as a hard-nosed retro man.
No, but you know what? There was a point in time, and it's a few months down the line, where I was a Shawn guy for one night, Royal Rumble 96. I was behind him. I believe that like his career was over as a 9-year-old. I thought he's coming back to win this Royal Rumble. So I was behind them, but no chance, Ben. There's no chance I'd be paying $25 to this day for them here. But I guess you two guys would pay 10 times the amount for that kind of merchandise. Am I right, Michael?
I asked, because it was in the UK merchandise catalogue that came free with one of the magazines. I asked my dad if I could have the red fingerless gloves and white and red heart-shaped sunglasses. And he was just like, no, son, you can't. And then, like, do you know what Christmas.
I asked for... It's a common thing.
They were cheap. They were cheap, they weren't like mega expensive. And I thought, I just want something in the Fed to touch. Yeah. And then, obviously, Diesel does... He does his bit, doesn't he, with the black glove? And I was like, all right, Dad, I'll have the black ones. Can I have the black ones? He was like, still no.
could have just made just your own ones at home. That's what I was trying to get my mum on, because before Sean, I was a Bruce is the Bar Beefcake was my favourite wrestler. Obviously, makes sense, you know, similar gear, similar gloves. I remember trying to get my mum to get those gloves for me for Christmas. Like I remember saying to her, you could just cut the fingers off your gloves if you want to look homeless at Christmas, Richard. I'm not buying them for you. I thought they'd be the coolest look in the world, though, both whether it was Sean or Beefcake. Although, as always happens in these segments, young man, almost a teenager, Doc Hendricks, couldn't make it seem any less cool, could he? Knocking around in that gear. It's awful.
Diesel, they're talking about the Hornet plan, aren't they? And is Owen really at the building? Is he really here? Whatever. And Diesel says, I smell a rat. And Sean says, I just thought that was Doc.
Yeah. But even Diesel just taking the hat off Doc and just putting it on his own head, innit? Just little, like, he just doesn't. He just like, and then there's
Doc,
another one with
sheepishly takes the glasses off, like, I'm probably wearing these while I'm next to Sean. Okay,
but he gets another line in here again. Don't even two chaps with the 4 straps, like, they keep on delivering these lines. It never ends.
You know, Marge Simpson's got that pink dress that she has to keep altering just to kind of keep using it. I always say that when they've only got the one line, it's just right. How can we repurpose this line and add an extra word to it? At this point, I'm just like, I'm the heart eyes emoji because Diesel and Sean are on screen together. And there's now better to look at in all the wrestling than those two. The height difference, the gear, the everything, they're perfect. It is. Matty, you put a tweet out that you're doing prep for it, and on the laptop that I'm recording this on now, there is an identical screenshot of those two together because it is the best aesthetic ever. Diesel and Sean unmatched together. I used to hate it when in 2006 Triple H would take the Diesel spot posing behind Sean. I was like, that's not your fucking spot, mate. Like that's Kevin Nash.
Yeah, so it's Kevin Nash, and in a bind, it's Bam Bam Bigelow stood to the side. It's not you.
It is, though. It's one of the most iconic, like, poses, isn't it, ever? Like, I love it so much. It is. It's so iconic. It's brilliant. But you can just tell, kind of, it's an easy thing to say and, like, might sound ridiculous, but you can just tell how much they're loving being together, can't you? Nash and Michaels, they just absolutely are having the time of their lives with every second.
Which is a shame, innit? Because, like, I think, like, all the promos we talked about on the pre-show, like, the problem is when they give Diesel the mic. When he hasn't got a mic in his hand, and he's just being cool Kevin Nash going back and forth with Sean, he's brilliant. As soon as, like, the mic comes close to his mouth, he just starts robotically repeating lines. You can see the Kevin Nash in Diesel, can't you? Whenever 100%. Him and Sean are just fucking around. But as soon as he's got lines to say, he becomes like, remember when he did that back and forth with Punk in, like, 2011? And he's just reading a script and he's awful. And it's like...
That is script either, though, dear. Yeah, that is bad.
He's just never been good at that, has he? He's one of those guys. I've got to say, before we move on, Michael, if we're talking merch... Like, I'm hoping he comes back. Where's our boy by Barry? Is it Davinsky, isn't it?
Davinsky, yeah. I'm worried about Big Barry. He's not gone yet. He will be a victim of the cuts sooner or later, but I think we've got at least one more show, Big Barry. Yeah, hope so. Unless he's been scared out now.
Is that the Clicks doing, or couldn't he handle the Jack Daniels in the bar? Which one do you reckon? Why's he gone?
It was both of those and the grind. Like it was. Money was probably so tight, he probably had to lug the t-shirts around in his own suitcase. Those denim jackets were heavy, you know.
Well, we go from there into a match that I've got to give you pride to place on as the retro boy here, Matty. I suppose before we talk the match, we do need to talk the feud. As we've been saying, Bret Hart has been lumbered with a few things in this period, as Michael said, you know, dentists being among them. Or we're here with a full-blown pirate as current day TNA wrestling superstar Jean-Pierre Lafitte is Bret Hart's current feud going on while all the stuff is kind of on the back burner. We get a bit of a highlight package here before we get to the match of Jean-Pierre Lafitte, and obviously he's out there in Bret's jacket. He's stealing the glasses from children, as Bret says in his promo. Even throws in a line there about he's going to make him walk the plank. Get it? Because he's a pirate.
Unbelievable.
Young PCO, or Pierre, as JR keeps calling him, during this match. What a feud for your boy Bret this is. I imagine it's going to be a 12-part Bret show on these lads, because they do come into contact with each other a lot in this period.
Yeah, we've had to shuffle that down the spreadsheet now. We're going to do half a little review on this one, boys. But PCO, it's JPL at this point, lads. John Pierre Lafitte, that's what we'll call him in this. But it is, it's the time, isn't it? It's that, as you say, Bret's like, I'm not saying he's mid-card Bret. Like, I will never say he's mid-card Steve, but he's been lumbered with a lot during this year, and always making chicken salad out of chicken shit, if I will say so myself. And it is on paper like he's robbing his jacket, he's taking but it's this era, isn't it? It's this cartoon era, and Bret's like standing up against the bully. And I did love that walk the plank line, but not as much as Bret did. That little cheesy grin when he said, you could tell he was dying to say it again, where he was one of them trying to crack that joke again.
The music's getting to the end and he's still going on plank references.
And that's why I'm the best. Oh shit, Bret, you fucked it again. I've got to say, man, like, there's the two things. I will throw this match to you, Matty, because you're brilliant at these Bret matches. The Captain Hook, Captain Crunch thing that he did. Like, how he then, and this is what I wanted to flag up about Bret, right? When he's talking about the jacket, this is the same as CM Punk with the bracelet. This is the same as the Ula Fala. Like, I've spent a year having to defend why supposedly meaningless items can mean things to people, and that's exactly the same as what Bret is doing with this jacket here. He knows he's got 50 other jackets. It's not the point. It's not like, and he knows that Jean-Pierre Lafitte's a pirate, but that's not the point either, because you can't talk seriously about a pirate. It's about someone's, like, the choices this man is making being bad and being cruel, and Bret's got to deal with that. And just when you're already like punching the air thinking, fucking go on then, Bret, you get him. Wrap it up. Pay-per-view of the year 2025. He walks through the door of the house.
Oh, yes.
When he leaves the promo.
Unreal shot, though, Michael. How good's it?
Wipe my shirts off, just wipe us down. Like, that's it now. Like, you could turn the tape off and it's like, well, we're not doing anything better than that. Like, WCW is probably going to go out of business because nobody's walking through the door of the house. Unbelievable scene.
From this point on, I'm disappointed when anybody doesn't walk through the door of the house. I think London Braze gets that pride of place a little bit after this. It's brilliant as well, because I don't know if you caught it. I feel like Bret didn't know if it was a pull or push door, so he kind of just holds for a second and just does a little sly pull, realizes and gives it a push. I love that. Brilliant. But yeah, using the set. Gotta respect it.
But it's also, lads, when he does walk through there, and maybe it is because it's such an iconic scene, Michael, he gets the pop of the night by a million miles at this point. And dare to say, the pop of the night of the whole card. I'll put that on the table, lads, before we get to the main event. I really think it's seeing that big star, isn't it? And I can't do me fellow Bretro cohort Gareth. I can't fill in his shoes for breaking the match down, but just the way this match starts, lads, that dive Bret does, I mean, he totally just goes over, doesn't he? And lands on his back, he overshoots
whole
that.
Body in it, everything into it, sneeze, all of it.
But as we know, PCO these days, he wouldn't expect anything less. PCO, he's telling him to lay it in, isn't he? You know what I mean? But it's and this is, I mean, maybe it's not going up against hard competition, but this is the match of the night by far, so far, and it's just got all the stuff. And I love the fact the King on commentary still, and it's cutting to him, you still get that feud, that resentment from the King, which you'd always get up until like Bret even, turned heel in 97. But there's just loads in this. I love the fact that, like, although Bret does take it, but Pierre takes the sternum bump into the turnbuckle, which is like who takes it the hardest, and Bret always does. But once again, it's PCO we're talking about here. And I just love the fact that when Bret does his finishing stretch, we get a few little caveats through him. The middle rope elbow, he doesn't hit it. Pierre puts his foot up. It's just little stuff like that, like Gareth explains every month on Bret, so that Bret will always throw in there that he's not just the same old. He'll always throw a little curveball in there. But there's loads in the crossbody into the ropes where like he spirals round, Michael. It just looks brilliant how like he manages to like hang and then bounce off. It's just unbelievable stuff. And the finish, I mean, we spent 12 episodes of Bret around, I think. Out of the 25 matches we reviewed, I don't think he's won by the sharpshooter once. I think it's all these reversals and cradles and innovative pinfalls Bret gets. But here, it's innovative how he gets into the sharpshooter. Always, even when I was wrestling backyard Benno or in my house against my mates, I'd always do that finish all the time, get into the sharpshooter off the floor, lad. Just unbelievable creativity. And yeah, absolutely love this match, lads. Don't know about yourselves.
You know, he's driving around between the towns and he gets the finish in his head and he just maps backwards. It's one of those matches, isn't it? We talked on the last show on Housekeeping, the way he gets he does a sharpshooter finish there as well, but it's, I don't know if you remember, Matty, but it's Kid like constantly going to the top rope and he goes up that one too many times and Bret plucks him out the air. The WrestleMania 12 spot, basically. Like, but it's always different, isn't it? It's always thought through and it's always logical. And yeah, this is one of those Bret performances, Michael.
Yeah, I think the sharpshooter finish made so much sense in this one. Like, it's a Vince McMahon cliche that he never applied correctly, other than maybe in this match. He loved saying, didn't he, seesaw back and forth, like a seesaw matchup back and forth. That's the story of this match. It's got quite a unique layout in that, like, no one man has the advantage for any longer than a couple of minutes at a time. And because Bret's the established guy, what that's really doing is putting over Jean-Pierre Lafitte. Because the best Bret can do is have a couple of minutes of control and then Jean-Pierre Lafitte takes it back and then Bret's got to win it back again and then Jean-Pierre Lafitte takes it back. And Matty points out, like, the moves that he's missing is allowing Jean-Pierre Lafitte back into the match. So then Bret's job is, right, I expected to be on control and I'm not. So now I've got to take it back. And what an incredible and thoughtful way that is to put over the wrestling ability of a pirate. That's what the goal is here of Bret. It's like the man, I cannot state this enough, the man is a pirate, and Bret Hart's job is to try and tell you for the future, well, you need to be worried if you're wrestling this pirate because he's actually a pretty handy wrestler. Look at how many times he took the advantage back off me. I'm the wrestler that gets control and doesn't let go. I don't relinquish control of a wrestler. And this pirate has done it to me over and over again, and it gets you right the way to the finish. Because the sharpshooter, as Matty says, it's not often one that Bret goes to, especially in like pay-per-view settings. But he finds his legs entangled, and it's like, do you know what? Every time I get control, he wrestles it back. What's the one way I can get control and not have him wrestle it back is get him in the sharpshooter. Like, I could pick him up by the legs and I could do the stomp, or I could go back to the top and try and hit the elbow, but he keeps countering me. So why don't I just, while it's opportune, go for the finish? And he gets it. And I love the thought that goes into that. And it's the polar opposite of Razor and Dean. It's the polar opposite because you come out of this and you'd be thinking, well, he ran Bret Hart really close. He could win the belt. He could win the title. And what happens? He falls out with Diesel on that Montreal house show and he's out the company like 4 weeks later.
About to say it, Michael.
It's just like Bret couldn't have done more to set Jean-Pierre Lafitte up for like the next 6 months of matches, and he's out the door in like 3 weeks or whatever. This is pretty much his last hurrah on television.
But there's also, like, you know, we know PCO more now for his bumps and his craziness, especially at his age. But there's that missent onto the floor where it's like, he just splats that floor, doesn't he? It's very much looking into the future there for sure, like.
Yeah, he gets. I say one more. Is pretty 50-50, but he gets lots in, doesn't he? And Bret makes sure of that. That's what makes Bret great in this period.
There's like
forever, Benno, not just this period. Forever.
Yeah, you know, a couple of years, not WCW.
There was something Bret did at SummerSlam that he also does here, and it's not something he's ever done since the Hart Foundation turned babyface, and that is he wears all black. And I have the theory that the reason he wears all black against Isaac Yankem and then against Jean-Pierre Lafitte in these matches in these times is because basically he's trying to sort of illustrate that he's taking this seriously because he has to, because he's wrestling human cartoons. So the fact that he's in this, like, this all, rather than being neon like they are, like over the top cartoon characters, he's in his black wrestling gear. I'm a serious wrestler. Yes, he's a dentist. Yes, he's a pirate. Yes, he's a ninja, but they're wrestlers and I've got to out wrestle them, because if you notice, as soon as he's back in the title match against Diesel in the Survivor Series, all pink. Like, he wants to contrast against Diesel. He wants to look like the Hitman again because Diesel's the world champion. This is like Bret can be Bret. And I genuinely think that's a choice he's made to visually illustrate that, like, Bret is taking this seriously, because he's always been pink and black, a mix of the two, or all pink, which just looks really, really babyface. This is a serious black gay Bret. And the next time he does it after the Diesel title match is the Iron Man match against Shawn at WrestleMania 12. Because
he's in there with another cartoon character, isn't he?
Because he sees that man. He sees that man as a cartoon.
Jose Lothario. I mean, I like Hans Molman, but come on.
He knows that nobody's been taking him seriously because Sean's doing upside down chin ups and he's been doing jogs on the Canadian snow. So he's got to get the all black gear back on again. Because then in '97 he's in the black all the time, isn't he? When you got the Hart Foundation, he's pretty much always in the black after that. So I think that's what he thinks he's doing when he's wearing his all black.
But it can't be understated enough there, Michael, like you've said there, and this is, testament to Bret, just put in general here, as you said there, just name who he's in there with, a dentist and a pirate, mate. Like, seriously, like, it's insane, really, isn't it, when you really think about it? But he does the best he can with it, for sure. It's just great. When you were
kids, when you were younger, I know, Benno, you said you were a Shawn guy, and, like, I love this era Shawn, but I'm Bret, I never kind of...
We don't have to fight.
I never, like, as a kid, I never sort of thought, Bret's fighting a bunch of losers. I was just like, thank God Bret's keeping the pirates and the dentists at bay. Like, I still took Bret seriously. Like, he was so good. I didn't allow him to be dragged into the shit by this booking, by this politicking. I was just like, well, that's Bret's business. Bret's taking care of some business because he's Bret. Do you know what I mean? It didn't work. It didn't work as a strategy to try and other him and push him to the side, did it?
Yeah. No. But imagine a mess of a world we'd be in if Bret wasn't taking care of the evil dentists and the evil clowns and the evil kings and the evil fucking hell to list in it, evil pirates. If we didn't have him out there, like, they'd be taking over the world. So he's doing a good. But it's transparent what they're trying to do, and it never worked because, like you said before, Matty, he still comes out there and is, if not the one of the most over people on the card. But speaking of the most over people on the card, we're going to get to our main event in a second. Before we get there, we do have a little backstage last segment where Jim Cornette just seems to have remembered that, British Bulldog's right here, isn't he? Right in my lap. I guess it can be British Bulldog who's going to be the partner here as we get the reveal. He does do a good job here, though, Cornette, I'd say, Michael, kind of talking out both sides of his mouth, like trying to appear to be confident and made up that he's got Bulldog, also worrying about the belts as Gorilla Monsoon certifies it there and then that it's going to be for all the belts. It's a good two-pronged performance for me.
Yeah, I think that's how you know that the story is supposed to be that he didn't want to do the match, because why would he not choose Bulldog? Like, he's right there in the stable. Like he's kind of had something we didn't talk about. Sorry, I've just got to go back.
Yeah, in the cutaways, the
backstage cutaway when it's Yoko and Mabel, the fat lads, and A, that's incredible, right? But B, you can hear somebody say action, and they're looking down the camera waiting to be told to stare at each other.
The visual look great together, but that and the other one, obviously Sid. The other one,
staircase in it, Sid.
Why is Sid not just going sound? Why sounds brilliant.
It's Sid, though, isn't it? It's Sid. He's nuts, isn't he? That's why he's not saying
Sid, right? This is Sid's last 2 months, right? Sid loses his last shot against Diesel, and then Gorilla Monsoon says he's too shit to get an Intercontinental title match. And then he fights a pig farmer, and Jim Cornette says, do you want to win both belts? Because you can. And Sid says, nah, you're all right. Like,
it's fucking,
that doesn't stop.
It's a hell of an offer, isn't it? Like, the only thing you've got to lose is somebody else's tag belt. Just do it. Like, you snap his hand off, don't you, with that? Which, again, begs the question, why is he going to them before he goes to Davey? But, hey-ho, that's the story we're telling. We've got to get to
Michael, if the offer was he batting first in a game of softball, he would have been well up for it, wouldn't he? He definitely would have been.
You're first in line, get himself sacked so he could have the time off. But
legend.
That's our big reveal. We love him. Gave us both that fist pump, didn't he, Matty, in Liverpool? One of the greatest moments of my life. Getting a Madison Square Garden fist bump from Sid as me and Matty watched.
No, genuinely, Michael. I've made up for it. Seriously.
We're the only two got the fist bumps. Also got a slap on the back from Big Virgil as well.
But what was, Michael?
Weekend.
With Sid, this wasn't in his his cue and stuff. We seen him after it, didn't we, Ben? And I thought, it's Sid standing there. I'm going to have to go over. And even if he is, you hear some stories about him that he could be a bit standoffish, but he couldn't have been as nice a fella, could he? Like, genuinely.
And we were taking the piss.
Fella.
He'd stood there all day charging people 30 quid a picture. We waited until he was done walking off with a little Tesco bag, Michael, which again, really my man was wondering what's in your little Tesco bag. And we got a little picture with him on his way out. But he was great about it. He was fine.
And a fist bump, though, as you say, picture and a fist bump. What a guy.
That's brilliant, man, yeah.
Even shook Bret's hand that weekend, Matty. It was a great weekend. Did well, but from that backstage segment. This is where we do have a London Braze. Yeah, she gets the big build up where it's like the former women's champion here to model a t-shirt as she comes out in the event tee, which, like the cover of the VHS, is already immediately out of date, as Vince points out on commentary, because Owen's on it. Who's ringing up and paying the $20 for this is 20, not 25, but you still get the free blank tape, which she shows off. She gets it from like the front of the house of our house, of course, where we all live, and Matty lives on the couch. Like, she goes into like the hedge, doesn't she, and pulls the tape out. I don't know why they're keeping the VHSs there, but that's it. I can't imagine they sold many of them.
The t-shirt's more expensive than the pay-per-view.
Does it make
$5 more than the whole show? And again, everything's got a butterfly effect now. She's been overlooked. She gets the title back, but nobody cares. And what does she do? She goes to Nitro and hoys it in the bin. Like, they got what they deserved with stuff like this.
That's it. It's awful use. I don't know. Maybe I'd wear the t-shirt ironically to this day. Not sure I'd buy that tape, but hey ho, that's what we get there. And yeah, that brings us into our main event. I love I love anything, and it happened a couple of weeks ago on the Raw on Netflix debut. When you get like two people crossing streams, one's coming out and one's leaving, one's a big star and one's a jobber, solo Sikoa. Or let's say Triple H and The Rock. Let's go with that instead. We get that equivalent here as we have Yokozuna just as Alundra Blaze goes through the door. It's like he must have been waiting backstage for his cue as he bombs through like the big proper entrance here, almost a cross-pollination. But yeah, he comes out. Bulldogs are a little bit slow behind, but follows out. So the heels get their entrance, and then after that, Michael, it's babyface time, as we are reminded. Not much of a theme, I suppose, on this pay-per-view, but I think it's been undersold that we are in fact in Michigan. It is in fact where Diesel's from, and he gets the home palm pop that he deserves.
Oh God, two dudes with attitudes. They're fucking posing the pyro, bury me with it. Honest to God. I wish the Bulldog had gotten out the way, because you cannot get a perfect screenshot of it, as both me and Matty discovered. Get out the way, mate. But the two of them, as the double pyro goes off, 94 stuff, but now they're baby faces, so you get the whole look. If anything, it makes you more gutted at the end that they were missing the second tag belt, because all that visual was missing was them holding all four belts instead of having to split the one in the middle. Every visual is perfect. The music's great there. It's, as opposed to WrestleMania, Shawn doesn't mind Diesel being the guy when they're teaming together in this run, and there's pretty much nobody else I think he'd be that selfless with. I think he'd take the spotlight off everybody. Just to your point, Matty, because it's always Bret and Shawn and Diesel and a couple of others. I use the AEW comparison here. Business is in the bin and the buildings are empty. And that's what's happening in All Elite Wrestling at the moment. But the one difference that we've noticed when we've covered these new generation shows is the people that are going to these buildings love the stars on these shows. Yeah. Like, it's always loud for Bret. It's always loud for Shawn. It's always like, Diesel's not drawing, is he? We know he's not drawing, but they're always loud for Diesel. Yeah. The last few people, the 5,000 that are going to a WWE pay-per-view in Saginaw, actually like these wrestlers. And that, to me, is the big difference with like the emptier buildings with AEW at the moment. The crowds are quiet, with the exception of maybe two or three guys. They're still responding to this roster. You are now, what you're witnessing, on these In Your House, these are your last customers. You're lucky to have them.
Yeah, for sure. Like, as you say there, and even like, I know he hasn't been on none of these, has he? But even like, you can throw Undertaker into the mix, can't you? For like, especially on the Raws and stuff like. No, sorry, I wasn't just mentioning them there,
but we will, I suppose.
But it's that core of them 5 or 6 established stars are still who you're basing this promotion around, and they're doing it well. That's why you get, you have said it yourselves, that's why you're getting these random Bret feuds and Takers with Karma. You've got to split them out because you don't want to pair them up, because who's left? You need to spread them out as your attractions, and that's what they've done great.
Not to do too much hard-nosed AEW analysis, but I was thinking this the other day. You watch AEW and like it might look like it's impossible to fix. But you think about this period, all the pieces are actually there. Like, you look at this period, who are the people who, like, lead the Attitude Era and lead WCW and the NWO and all of that stuff? They're all there, you know, whether it's Nash and Hall, whether it's, you know, Shawn and Bret to a degree, you know, Hogan on the other channel, even down to the undercard guys, you know, your Godfathers, your Rikishis, they're all employed at this point. Billy Gunn and Road Dogg, they all work there. X-Pac, they all work there. It's just positioning, isn't it? And it's getting people in the right places and for the timing to kind of line up for everything. You'd be forgiven for thinking it's an entire different universe, but it's literally, what is it Matty usually always say? It's 2 years before, and it's all the fucking same people, isn't it? As like the peak years.
Then I agree to a point, and I've got to say it, Michael. You agree to all this for 90% of it, but you're missing one guy. Who's the savior?
Of course, yeah.
Steve. That's the man. That's the man.
The
He's
same
figured
thing,
out.
isn't it?
He's in ECW at this point. He's just getting released. Yeah, but yeah, you're right. He is.
Same
still
argument.
there,
he's the ringmaster. And he's knocking around in his knockoff shit green trunks, and like you wouldn't think.
Star boots, the Oliver Blondes boots, isn't it? It's mad.
Absolutely, yeah.
Crazy
and you
times.
just need to move that position, that person into that right position, and everything can change. And part of that comes with listening to the crowd and who's actually over and who's actually connecting, because they're probably going to be the people who connect when you do make the big move. So yeah, if you're out there, Tony Khan, that'll sort you, mate. Just Hangman, Ospreay, Swerve, yeah, you know the rest.
It just at the moment right now, we don't. Somewhere a wrestler is forgetting to drink the tea, and it's going to go stone cold. Yeah. And when that moment happens, that wrestlers, bang, they're gonna change everything.
Daniel Garcia switched to hot drinks, mate. Rather than
Daniel Garcia switched to red and yellow tights, and I was like, Jesus Christ, it's just not a wrestler wearing black boots and trunks. I might actually watch this week. Like, you never know. You never know.
That's old, isn't it? But as a match, I mean, this is very much, it's an audition, bit like, unfortunately, Mabel In Your House too, but it's a bit of an audition for Bulldog, isn't it? Even, you know, later in the match gets a visual pin on Diesel, does Davey, and later in the book and actually gets a legitimate pin on Diesel. But as far as a match structure goes, it's a lot of, you know, Shawn and Davey kind of had the back and forth early on, which leads to Diesel kind of clearing house. Shawn has one of those great, and you know I'm a fan of it, Matty, the little back and forth you do with Yokozuna, where sumo match with him, goes under his legs, runs circles around.
Chemistry they've got. Like,
it is, isn't it? And you can tell Yoko looks knackered. Yoko looks like, oh, are we really doing this spot? Can't be arsed, mate. Can you just powder instead? But he makes them go through the motions and do it. But you're right, chemistry, that like jumps off the screen and obviously slows down. Shawn takes the heat because he is still the Intercontinental Champion, even though he's, you know, he's kind of just peeling off a bit of Diesel's star power because he can't help but do it. But obviously Diesel's still a world champion and Shawn's the smaller guy. So yeah, he kind of takes the bulk of the heel offense in the match. But yeah, what did you make of it as a match, Matty? I very much enjoyed this one, and yeah, if you can put your Bret Hart hat aside, you know, dudes with attitudes, they were great.
Oh yeah, they were. No, they were. I don't like hate Shawn Michaels like Gareth does. Don't get me wrong. I'm just not a bit. He's just never been one of my guys, Michaels. You know what I mean? But we all agree, don't we? Like it's universal. Like 90s. Dare I say, pill, I'm using your language, like, pill Shawn's better than Jesus Shawn. Yeah. Like, everyone, that's just across the board. He's so entertaining to watch. And you're right there, Ben. This match, like, as a concept, just all the titles has always stuck with me. But I've always been a fan of the actual match as well. As you say, you got Shawn, Old and Davey Zan doing their stuff. But I always remember it. It's Michaels and Yokozuna. Always, from this match, has always stuck out for me. I just love seeing that image on screen, and that chemistry is like it. And as you say, it's like Shawn, to be fair as well, like even though Yoko's way heavy at this point, it's Shawn respecting, like, come on, Rodney, you are a good worker, you can still do this, let's have a go. As knackered as you said he is, he respects the fact that he can work and do this kind of stuff with him. It's brilliant. And even the spots in here, like, you know, I know you, especially you, Michael, would love the splash off Diesel's shoulders, and I just thought of you when I seen that. But
you know, Peter used to do that on the bed. He broke 2 different beds with that. I was Diesel, he was Shawn. I think the pillow was Owen Hart. Great stuff.
But even the spot, like, later on where I think it's Diesel whips Bulldog, and Bulldog does what he used to do in 99, does that, like, front flip into the table, bounces off Yokozuna, and then Rodney just, like, dazed and just falls on top of him. Just great, really fucking good, basic stuff that gets a great pop. Always loved this match. I think we can say what we want about the finish. It's getting yourself out of trouble, where I'll use one of your lines, is it, Ben? don't book it in the first place if this is what you're going to do. And like Michael said, you're really screwing the customers over. Yeah, but it's like it fits into what they want to do the next night. It's keeping what Diesel and Michael's happy with. I don't know. I don't know. I'm sure you guys are trying to explain and what actually did happen the next night out the torch. But it's a bit of a mess to finish. But I can't say I didn't have a great time. Like I used to when I was a 9-year-old, 10-year-old watching this on VHS. I had even more of a great time watching it this week.
Before we get to the finish, and I'm sure you got some thoughts on the match as well, Michael, I've got to say, as you continuously call them Rodney there, like Yokozuna, is this the most bloodline he comes across? Maybe it's just because I'm older. Maybe it's because I watched that WWE Vault footage. But like, he's got the look of like, I don't know which relative he looks more like here, but he's actually got a little bit of Roman in him. He looks a little bit like a bigger like kind of version. I think it's the stubble, isn't it?
Yeah,
like he looks beard. Full on. Like you could plop him into that bloodline story now, and the personality's coming out of his face. He's less trying to be like the stoic, allegedly Japanese sumo wrestler. He does look like he'd fit right on WWE TV right now.
Started the wearing the red and black tape. He's got bloodline colours on his wrists and hands by this point as well.
Yes.
There's a point where it's funny because Shawn Michaels he's just an irresistible performer, isn't he, in these matches? I could watch 100 of these and not get bored. You could make a compilation of everything Shawn Michaels did in 1995 and I could watch it on a loop and never get tired. That's like Desert Island Wrestling. It's so watchable. And like, there's a point where you mentioned about the chemistry with Yoko. Like, there's points in this match where Yokozuna leans on the second rope and just can't get out of the ring. And the match is carrying on because he's so tired and he's so like, we have gone past the point where Yokozuna can even really be just a tag guy. It's got to be a spot and then onto the apron to rest. Not even a portion of the match, really. So to get what they get out of him here, and to be fair to him, what he's able to do, legitimately quite impressive with as you see him just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. There was a couple of points, just like you've covered what's so great about the actual match and the chemistry and how it all plays together. I just like, there's a lot of like sign of the times stuff that I like. There's a sign in the crowd that says Hulkamania is dead. So that's the first little bit of tribalism you're seeing in the now that Nitro's started and Hogan's still a babyface. Jim Ross clearly trying to illustrate that, like in a very Jim Ross way, that forget those old timers in WCW on the guaranteed contract. Here is where the workers work. He says that Shawn's only had 4 days off in the last 35 days. Now, that's a hell of a stat to place on Shawn Michaels because it makes you realize, and this guy's flying around like this. Unfortunately for Jim Ross, cage match exists in 2025. So I can, in fact, tell you we only worked 15 days. But like, like what's that thing where it takes a lie half the time to get around the world twice before the truth got out the front door? Like nobody.
And the 35 days he spent at the bar, like they count they're miles on the body.
It depends what you count as work, doesn't it? He's about to work his hardest shift down at Club 36 in Syracuse, isn't he? So,
that's coming. Cannot wait to listen to you guys on that. Cannot wait for that.
So, like, he had to be absolutely fair to him. What it was, I did the maths, and I was like, 4 days off. That would have meant he would have had 31 matches between like the 20th of August and the 24th of September, and he had 15. But like that calendar was still brutal at the time, there's travel days and there's all the rest of it. So just the idea that they're putting over Shawn is like, he's every kind of babyface at this point. He's like the white meat babyface when he's getting his ass kicked. He's the cool babyface because he just is cool. Like Benno, you always mentioned stubble Shawn. Like he's perfect as this babyface. And now Jim Ross is telling you that he's kind of like the hardest working guy in the roster as well. They're setting all the pieces in place to present this guy as like the perfect guy to be the champion at the next WrestleMania.
But just to piggyback off a couple of points you said there as well, and what I said about Michaels and Yoko, there's that one where Bulldog crotches Michaels on the top rope, and Yoko, like you're saying there, Yoko's knackered, and you can hear Michaels shout, "Elbow me," and he just and then Yoko just elbows him and he takes the big thing. And also, like, my absolute highlight, I rewound it so much when I was a kid. Just that, like, the switching music to Yoko, because he kind of has to, like, avoid the pinfall. So, like, his leg just looks even extended even longer, doesn't it? I love that switching music. Yeah. And Yoko takes the bump. But it's Michaels at this point, like you say there, especially in 95. He was like the hybrid of every wrestler, because he always had that, like, cheesy, dare I say, campy elements, like you said, where he jump in the crowd, sit there. So he had like the territory stuff down. He was also run rings around anyone work-wise, wouldn't he, with cardio and actual moves and the way he laid together. So he was just this perfect mesh of a wrestler at that point. Just got it all, didn't he? It's just a shame he was a bit of an asshole, genuinely, because I always say about the Click.
Also,
sorry, I always say about the Click, no matter what you say, they always looked after themselves, and I've buried them a lot in this show today. But they ultimately wanted the wrestling business to be better. They lived and breathed it. I genuinely believe that, and that's why I'll always have a bit of time for them, because he wanted it to be better than the actual product. So fair play to him for that.
We talked about this in the Jarrett match, Matty, but you know, when me and you have discussed when Sean, this was the period where he started doing the flying forearm into the kick up as one single bump.
Yeah.
Like it was in the Jarrett match where we first saw him do the Randy Savage elbow, and it's like, oh, he does it better than Randy Savage. Well, fuck him then. Like Sean was that good. He was just like taking these things that you thought only one person could possibly even try, and Sean can just do it. And it's like that was his ability, and that was his, like, this match was the first time. Like, how many times had you watched babyface Bulldog throw around heel Sean? Yes. And they did the same match, but with the flipped alignment in this one. So like Sean's doing the flare bumps in the corner, but now Bulldog's looking vicious for doing it rather than how it used to be, like Bulldog making his comeback. It was amazing that they were able to keep the same moves, but flip the dynamic. Like you say about the crotch, Bulldog can't do the rope spot anymore because that's a babyface thing. So Sean says, elbow me, Rodney. And that's how that now works. Like that's genius stuff, considering how many times they've worked the same spots together.
Which is funny because it, like, we always talk about those combinations where, you know, like a Rock Triple H, where they just seem to be like, you know, mirror. They'll switch alignments, but they were always tied together. You don't think of Davey and Sean in that regard, but they kind of are. You know, at different points in their career, like working against each other and tied together, and putting those house show spots into different
always
spots
better
on pay-per-view matches.
92. So Michaels wins as IC in 92. Rumble 95. They're married throughout the whole match, aren't they? And then they go there. 96 title run. Yeah, always.
All the way through.
One night only.
One night only.
Yeah, I know.
That's what Davey would like to forget, but, you know.
Won't go into that one.
Throw that in there too as well. But yeah, Sean's unbelievable in this match, like we keep saying, Matty. It's not like Vince just plucked him out of his security. No, we'll make him the champion, that gobshite. It's because, you know, he's the one or two with Bret as far as the best in wrestling in the company.
And he's sick of his moaning, probably, to be fair.
Yeah. You go with him. He's cool. He's current. He understands.
He is.
That's the thing about the Click guys. You said there, Matty. Yeah, they deserve pelters, but they also knew what was coming, and they understood what the world should have looked like in 1995 and 1996, and they get their way eventually, and it is for the best, at least for the companies, for a short period. But yeah, all that happens, and then Owen comes out, takes a jackknife, and gets pinned, which is the finish of this match, which is the bit you can't get away from, can you? It's so hilarious the way it happens, like Owen coming down, just climbing to the top, jumping off, going for a flying nothing, and then just getting booted and jackknifed and then pinned. It's like, it's almost a burial, isn't it? If you didn't know otherwise, it's awful. It's like, oh, poor Owen.
It's just cheap, innit? It's just cheap. Like, it's knowing what we know. And, you know, like, to your point, I think, Matty, about where they're going to go with the story and stuff. Like, but you don't book it. You don't do this. Like, even if you want the visual of them with the belts and whatever, it's just, and you're protecting Bulldog, and Bulldog had Diesel beat, as you mentioned, Benno, which is important for In Your House 4. But like the sort of the sheer audacity to run this angle, and like all the marketing, a guaranteed title change, and it's like, if anything, it's actually for another win, because yes, they do win the ratings point the next night, probably because people have wanted to tune in to see Sean and Diesel with all the belts, and they're getting that ripped off, and WWE have won a ratings war with it as well. It's sly stuff.
To talk the aftermath, and we probably should in conjunction with it before we wrap on the pay-per-view, that is essentially what happens, isn't it, Michael? Obviously, they bring in Clarence Mason, who becomes a character due to this story. Cam Cornette fight the fact that Owen wasn't legally in the match. Therefore, it's declared that Yoko and Owen are still the tag team champions, and Diesel and Shawn have to give up the belts, which also has on. And if you're a fan who is at home pissed off, thinking, hang on, like even just from a kayfabe point of view, surely Diesel and Shawn should get another shot then. Nah, they just give the Smoking Guns a shot, who win the belts. And as the Torch rightly points out, to make you not think that and think Shawn and Diesel were ripped off, they have Shawn and Diesel celebrate with Billy and Bart like they're made up for the fellow baby faces. Case closed. Who cares? They were never the tag team champions, and they've moved on anyway. It's not important anymore. That's pretty much the story, isn't it, Michael? It's a way to put a bow on it, and like you said, get a bit of a rating out of it too.
And this is it, yeah. So they've got the rating, they've got the belts where they need to be without having really had to do any proper booking when it comes to beating your baby faces. And now as well, what we're heading into, and this is going to come up in our next housekeeping, is what is kind of considered the famous Bill Watts Raw. He gets a Mid-South Raw for one night.
Yeah,
so
very good.
They needed Diesel and Shawn kind of out of title contention so you could get to the Mid-South Raw finish, which if you don't know what I'm talking about, Benno, I kind of wait for us to get onto it. I saw Matty nodding. He knows what I'm referring to. But yeah, it's a very Bill Watts night in WWF in the summer of 1995. Very strange, but it's cool to watch.
I think I know, but I'm looking forward to getting there, definitely. But yeah, any other thoughts on the story, the ending? I suppose the pay-per-view as a whole, Matty, as that kind of brings us to the end. Unfortunately, we don't have the dark matches. Bob Holly and Goldust. Ahmed Johnson against Skip, who I think the Torch calls Ahmed something else, doesn't it? What's
Lamont Johnson? It is
Lamont Johnson. I love Big Tony. What a man! He's the original Big Tony, isn't he, Ahmed Johnson? He's
I want that.
He's on his way.
I want that on the vault. I want that match on the vault because there's a picture of Ahmed from the magazine at this point, and he's in tights that look like Harlem Heat. Like long tights.
Yeah,
they look like they're like red and yellow flames, and you never saw that on TV. So I want the vault to upload that match because after you've got red and yellow flames, then you've got pants and one pair of knee pads, and then a year later it's obviously the Ahmed we've sadly discussed in the past with 15 shoulder pads. So I want to see.
Don't forget the classic Raw magazine look with the Daisy Duke shorts and other
Daisy Duke shorts
halfway up his ass.
bum bagging his tits out.
Yeah. Oh, legend. But yeah, the Big T run is not the best. But yeah, he's in the dark matches. Shame we haven't got a copy of it. And Undertaker, of course, the dark match king in these shows against King Mabel. Thank God we avoided that match. I think it's a better show without it. We can all fucking say.
I got some bad news for you, Benno.
It's coming.
Oh, of course it is.
The man has rhythms on the next
and the mask and all that. Oh,
yes,
no.
Phantom of the Opera Taker's coming. Love it.
No, that did scare me as a kid, to be fair. So I'm looking forward to revisiting that element of it. But other thoughts, Matt?
Just first of all, thanks for having me on reviewing this, lads, because I've had a great time. It's honestly, like I said at the top of the show, this was one I absolutely start to finish, could recite move for move. This pay-per-view, the commentary, it all just ingrained in me from when I was a kid. And looking at it now with an older head, I love it even more. So just I say, you got encapsulation of the characters at the time, maybe that they didn't stay around, like your Waylon Macy's we discussed, your John Pierre Lafitte, your Henry Godwin's, it's just that era to me. And then obviously you go for the second half of the pay-per-view where, all right, it wasn't the greatest match, Dean and Razor, but it was a big match, especially looking at the history. You got Bret and Pierre, which was probably, I don't know whether to say it's the best match, tied with the main event, because they have got a lot of love for that main event as well, but especially them last two matches, for me, from a match point of view, are great. So it's just got a bit of everything for me. The nostalgia, the matches, the characters, just unbelievable time, lads. Love it.
Brilliant. How about you, Michael? Any other thoughts on the show itself? Good little In Your House, this one. Enjoyed it.
It's, I think not coincidentally, it's the first In Your House that we've done with Shawn and Bret and Razor and Kid. And Diesel. It's each time so far, Shawn or Bret's been taking a break, and you've got the 5 or 6 matches, so it doesn't allow for everybody. It's pretty much the lot here. It's pretty much everybody for the first time. And again, it's that attempt, I think, to add value to the fact that you're already putting it at a discount rate. It's we can't justify sticking Bret or Shawn in the dark spot anymore. They've got to both be on the show. We need our stars, and that's what you get.
I'm gutted though, lads, for the next one. Not for the main event, for the next thing, you're going to cover, just for the opener, because we get the debut of another long stay to this day. Paul's coming, lads, as well. Don't get he's coming. What an opener, though, lads. What an opener. I'll give you that. I remember it being so good.
Yeah. He's coming. Brilliant. Well, yeah. I think that kind of sums us up as a pay-per-view, a fun one. Great having you on, Matty. I'll speak to you again on another podcast in about 10 minutes, I'm pretty sure. But I'll say plug-wise, I plug GRAPPL hard. Definitely take the opportunity. We should be plugging Bretro as hard as possible, because if people are listening to this and enjoying us talking in your house, have we got a treat for people over on the GRAPPL feed as well, Matt?
Yeah, over on the GRAPPL feed, as we've alluded to throughout this podcast, me and fellow GRAPPL alumni Gareth go through, basically pick two of Bret Hart's matches each month. One well-known match, one hidden gem or rarer match that you mightn't be familiar with or you haven't seen for years. And we basically just give you the backstory behind it. You know, Gareth expertly breaks the match down from bell to bell, literally, most times, which is also great to listen to. And we just basically have a big Bret Hart loving because he deserves it. You know, and if you're a fan of him, you know, as Benno said, come and check us out, and you know, any feedback would be appreciated. But you know, it's something we really look forward to doing each month, and it's 12 episodes in now, Benno, a year's worth of episodes, so long may it continue as well. So it's if everyone could check that out, it'll be good stuff.
Definitely, yeah. Search GRAPPL wherever podcasts are sold, and the first 12 episodes of Bretro are on our main feed, patreon.com/GRAPPL, free podcast available there as well going forward. But yeah, outside of that, follow you. You're still on Twitter, Matty?
I am, and it's one of them. I think everyone's had the same thing. I just can't get used to Blue Sky. I default automatically go to Twitter all the time still, and I'm still finding myself posting stuff like the prep for this show, as you said, Michael. But I feel like it's the only. I know we WhatsApp quite a bit, Michael, but it feels like I still converse with you on Twitter as well, in image-wise. Yeah. I don't know. I've just still got that in my head, so maybe it won't die fully. But we need to get Blue Sky going forward, don't we, lads? Let's be honest, it's a much nicer place than Twitter.
Definitely. But hopefully or our Discord, you know, that's the other end.
Of course, the Discord's very well. Love that.
We'll get you on Blue Sky soon enough, Michael. But yeah, anything more for you to say, Michael? Again, always good to have Matty in the conversation, the three of us. The triple feather, that's our nickname now.
Thanks again, man. Honestly,
I'll own it. I'll take it.
No, you're very, honestly, it's always great to pod with you as well, Matty. And I'll second the recommendation for Bretro. I don't need to plug the usual WhatCulture stuff. I don't need to mention Blue Sky or Twitter. You can come into the comments section and try and mop the tide as people abuse us. But yeah, so I'll plug Bretro as well. I was listening to your King of the Ring episode recently, and it's top stuff, man. It's a very, very it's a very worthy addition to your cracking GRAPPL outlet as well, because there's not many wrestlers that I think could justify that amount of focus, but Bret, you could go even longer than you do. It's class stuff.
Thank you, mate.
Stuff, yeah. I recommend there. But yeah, got all the plugs out the way. Follow us in all those places. Follow all our different stuff out there. Me and Michael will be back next time for another housekeeping ahead of In Your House 4. I'm looking forward to that one as well. But yeah, until then.
Sorry. Can I just can I make sure we have the eating on tonight, lads? When I get my head down, is that all right? It's cold. Sorry to ask.
Well, until then, you can find Matty on the couch. But me and Michael will thank you for the house. Good night, everybody.